swear.
We are live.
I swear. Oh, are we live? There we go. See, this is the beauty of live. I was going to say television, but we are online. Happy Monday, everybody.
TGIM.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Joe, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yes, it is. It's definitely 5 o'clock somewhere.
We were sitting down with Joe trying to explain to him what 5 o'clock somewhere means.
Yo, you don't know what 5 o'clock somewhere?
No, I know what it means.
I thought you're just bad with names.
Well, that too.
But we are okay. Today we're doing something new, ladies and gentlemen. So we're live on YouTube, as always. We're live on Facebook. We're back live on Facebook because Facebook banned us for about a year, and then they kind of gave us a slap on the wrist for about a month. So we're back on Facebook again. Mm-hmm. We're on Kick. We're on Twitter, and you know what? We're on Instagram Live today as well.
Wow, Instagram.
So we're making our way into the metaverse. Soon we'll be in full on VR.
Soon enough, apparently.
Soon enough. But we have a very special episode today. We want to thank the legendary vice principal, administrator, Mr. Kevin Welsh, for taking time out of his Monday to be with us.
All right.
It's funny. Mr. Welsh, the first thing he said was, call me Kevin.
It's awkward calling you.
Yeah, I know. It's impossible for you to do that. And I still refer to people in my past in the same way, you know. So I get it if you have to call me, but you know, Parone Welshian could be even better.
Parone Welshian.
Yeah, that would be
Welshian.
good. But you know, but I like the respect, Mr. Welsh. Hey, but you know, when you called me for this, you told me and bragged about your rankings of your podcast. So I looked you up, and you guys
it was full of shit, right?
You are killing it. You are the number one ranked podcast for Irish American and Irish topics.
Yeah,
it's so cool. I mean, how come you don't do any Armenian things? You know, come on.
Because Conor McGregor is sponsoring us. That's
okay.
Why.
Yeah, we're drinking proper 12 today.
Oh, nice.
So are we?
No, we're not. We're not drinking proper 12. And if Conor McGregor is watching this, if you want us to drink proper 12, you could cut us a check and we'll drink proper 12.
You know how to get a hold of us.
Seriously. So, I mean, there's so much we can talk about today. And again, you know, we thank you for driving all the way out to be with us because we don't want to sit here until 7 a.m. and reminisce and have nostalgic moments with you.
Why not?
He's ready for it. Why aren't you?
If you're ready for it, let's do it then.
Come on.
Let's do it then.
Arden's already calling it a show. It's been 4 minutes. Guys, that's a wrap for tonight.
But you right now with you have two generation of Hoover alumni here. You have a 98 graduate and you have a 2004 graduate. Joe was 98 graduate. 98 graduate as well. And when I reached out to you and I said, Mr. Welsh, we would love you on the podcast, and you didn't even hesitate. You said yes right away.
Yeah.
And we put this out there on multiple platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, and we told people that, you know, Kevin Welsh is going to be joining us, and everybody lost their shit. So you've left this amazing, I mean, I don't even know what to call it, like this
impact.
It's not even an impact, man. I mean, there's this something you've left with every single student where when they say Hoover principal, and we've had plenty of them, administrators, assistant principals, you've left this impact with everybody where we can't not mention you and not remember an even small history or moment that has impacted our life. So, I mean, I want to thank you for being the man that you are and being the principal that you are and not even hesitating to say, well, what are we going to talk about? And, what do you guys talk about? It was just, when are we doing this?
Yeah, the leadership and the influence I think you've had on so many generations of young kids, especially the Armenian community, as you know, because Glendale, there's about 14 Armenian families, I think maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
about 16 now.
16 now?
16,
it's grown.
About 16.
Good. It's grown a little bit.
No, it's, you know, I'm humbled when I hear it. I get a little embarrassed. I'm really proud and pleased. I'm really happy to be here, and it's fun to talk about the past. But I had a wonderful career that spanned 40 years, and the 28 of it was as an administrator at Hoover, and it all revolved around interactions and with people, and against the backdrop of tremendous sweeping changes in California and the nation. And it was all about interacting with young people and parents and staff. And so, there was a lot of people who were mentors to me, who were part of the team that helped produce what you very kindly just said.
Well, let's go back in time a little bit. I want to know who Mr. Welsh was prior to becoming an assistant administrator and an administrator at Hoover High School. How did you get into administration? How did you get into education? What led you to become, who you are today?
I was going to go to law school, and a childhood friend of mine was killed by a drunk driver. And I was devastated by that death when I was 22, 23. And so I just wandered about for about a year and could not think of what I wanted to do. And then, sort of like a last resort, okay, I don't know about law school. I'm going to go back and maybe get my teaching degree. I don't know, whatever. It wasn't like I really wanted to. And I did student teaching, and I just became hooked. It was me. I just enjoyed the teaching and the mentorships, and I enjoyed working with kids. So I became a teacher. I got hired in the Glendale School District, which was my entire career. I taught for 5 years. I was a drama and English and social studies teacher. In fact, you mentioned these generation. There's these kids in their 60s who I taught drama to that we kind of connect and talk about. Then I became a counselor at Wilson. And yeah, I was a nitro for 2 years. I became a counselor at Glendale High School. And then I was hired by the legendary, he's the GOAT, Don Duncan was the principal of Hoover High School in the 70s and 80s. Wonderful man, tremendous skills, and did a lot for me in my life, personally and professionally. And he hired me in 82 as the dean of students. So my path sort of started in education from a tragedy. And sort of, I think maybe I'll try to do this because I have to do something with my life. And I kind of came in the back door that way.
Interesting.
I'm trying to remember Mr. Duncan. I mean, I wasn't at Hoover in the 80s, but I think I remember hearing the name Mr. Duncan.
Wasn't Mr. Duncan around until
Don Duncan? Yeah.
Yes, wasn't he around until I believe it was like even up until the 90s, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was there primarily in the 80s and a little bit of the 90s, right?
Was he the individual that passed away in 2012, where they did this whole kind of
2013? Yes.
Yeah, because I remember Hoover put out something on social media where they mentioned him and they said how long he had been an administrator for and how he had a tremendous impact on not only students but the staff, the faculty, and the district itself, and my life. I mean, there you go. And in the 70s and late 70s and 80s, he was that archetype school administrator, 6'4", ex-jock, handsome guy, real tall, but he had these tremendous listening qualities, always very measured and calm, and just a magnificent influence. And he always, I had a lot of issues and different things going on, but he always, was a great mentor to me and supported my promotions and things of that nature. Yeah. In fact, I'm sorry, when these, we'll probably talk about them, when these tragedies occurred and those homicides at Hoover, and their very lonely moments in those offices late at night trying to figure it out. It was Don Duncan knocking at the door, coming in to talk to me. And during when you were administrator? Yeah, so he was mentoring you. He knew what I was going through, and as a principal during those horrible episodes and homicides and student deaths. And I remember he'd kind of knock outside the window, and I knew it was him, and he, how you doing? What's going on? You going to survive this? What's your plan and stuff? So he was a tremendous influence on my life. Yeah. Cause being an administrator, I think the key to all of it is being a good listener, because not only do you have staff coming to you for advice, you have teachers coming to you. I mean, you have students coming to you for advice. You have parents coming to you for advice. And that's one thing that I remember with you was your door was always open for students. I remember anytime we'd come to you, you'd always say, come on in, pop a chair, sit down. And we could sit down and talk to you for hours. And you you were an amazing person to just vent to. And being an assistant principal and a principal to us, it didn't feel like that when we came to you. It felt more of like a mentor or a friend that you were kind of venting to. And again, I don't know if it was all the training that you went through, that you were that you were phenomenal at, help guiding us, but it was very refreshing to sit down with you and just I could say it now, but shoot the shit with you, literally.
Sure. Yeah.
I actually remember a story about coming to you. I was a sophomore, and I had an incident with my English teacher. Well, the incident was there was a report due. I came in and I hadn't stapled the report. So I walked in, I grabbed her stapler from her desk, I stapled it before I turned it in. And she turned around and said, got to give me a quarter for the staple. I said, I don't have change. And she said, well, I'm not gonna accept your report. So I got really upset, like where I almost threw the desk at her. So she.
This sounds like Miss Germany.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, Miss Germany.
It was Miss Germany.
Oh man.
And so she sent me to your office, and she wanted to have me suspended. But when I shared the story with you, what happened, she ended up getting in trouble instead of me, because you're like, she has no right to charge you for a staple.
Well, she didn't. She did. You know what's funny? Is she didn't.
Germany, if you have a job out there, we're
she
sorry.
didn't. I thought you weren't doing names. She didn't and wouldn't have, or any other teacher have gotten into trouble for that. But what that tug and pull was, it was a struggle for me as an administrator, and how the discipline has changed is that, and it's also the impact that people. I don't remember this incident, kind of, when you say it, but that stands out to you, and whatever our conversation was stood out to you. It's these things that occur with adults in school that kids remember. They can be on the most positive, and they can be on the polar opposite, and a kid will remember that. And listen, you said some very nice things. I'm sure there's a lot of kids out there that are pissed because I hammered them and suspended them, and maybe I look like I was a racist or unfair. I mean, let's be honest. But just the idea that you would remember that, and the teachers, what I would battle with is, and in fact, the new law right now in 2024 in education, there is no more suspensions for defiance of authority.
Really?
Okay, there is no more. And I did in the old days suspend a kid if the teacher said, Armin, would you sit down? Would you do that? No, but if it was repetitive and you'd been sent before, but not on a first offense, you'd sit in the office, counsel and detain. I send you back later. But there were some teachers that wanted.
But see, what was surprising to me was, because I had such a great relationship with her, and yet when she did that, it really upset me. But you understood the situation, and see the impact that it has is, for example, now we're grown men, right? We run our own businesses, and
Are you? You guys? Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so it's
no, that's good. That's good to know.
Grown men, or which part? Grown men? I don't know. So sometimes I'd like to think, but see those examples, those situations, whether we realize it or not, helps us deal with situations today, right? Because the way you handle the situation could potentially maybe had an impact where I'm able to deal with situations in my office, right? Where if somebody comes and complains about another employee or a patient or a family, I'm able to handle it in a way, for example, and some of those experiences is what contributes to how it shapes us as adults. So it's not, everything doesn't just come from our parents or from reading a book. It comes from that. That's why school administrators and teachers have such a huge impact on kids. And I wish some of them would realize it more so these days, because during your times, I know they did, you guys did. But now it seems like they're kind of getting out of touch with that, not realizing how much of an impact they truly have long-term on these kids.
I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, but what I do agree with is that it is absolutely astounding how a young person will remember some type of an incident like that and how powerful the adult is at that moment and what can happen and the lasting impact of that, either for the greater good and positive in that day or that week or life, or something that's remembered that's, really, sours that kid.
I do feel like that is changing in today's society, though. I feel like the authority level of administrators and teachers has been diminished, I think, by the students and by the parents.
I agree with you on that.
Big time, because there's this phenomenal meme that I saw online years ago, and till today I remember it, where it showed parents with their child, and then there was an administrator sitting there or a teacher sitting there, and it would say school back in the day, and it would be the parents scolding the kid for failing a class, and then it said school today, and it was the parents scolding the teacher with the kid with a grin on his face.
Yeah,
And
I've seen that.
And I think that's, at the time when I saw it, I kind of chuckled at it. But in reality, that's what it's becoming.
Gentlemen, we got a super chat. I'm going to show it over there
Good.
on the screen.
By the way, if you do
And-
want a super chat, go on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube Live, that's where the super chat is. You can go ahead and donate to the show, and your comment will be blasted right onto the screen right there. Go ahead, Joe.
So the comment says, my parents loved getting his calls home of the many unwelcoming things of newcomers. It was much needed.
Breath of fresh air.
You know what that was?
What?
I don't know. Am I
Oh,
interrupting?
I don't know who it was.
No,
was
no.
it?
That was from Oppo.
No, we had an all-call thing that you could call every student at home.
It was the automated call thing
Yeah,
that came
right.
comes in.
But I came up with this gig because there was a competition, and they did statistics, and they wanted to see how useful this thing was and how many parents and homes were actually listening when you did the all-call on Sunday night. Hey, this is the principal, and this is what's happening this week, and stuff like this. So what I would do is, hey, Hoover, this is Kevin Welsh. I'm the happiest, luckiest, most fortunate principal in the Glendale School District. How we doing? Okay, so let's go. So that was my call sign to do that thing. And then if it was Halloween, I'd do some stupid thing. Hello, how you doing? What's going on? I said, sounded like a Jewish vampire or something. I mean, it would go on, and I would do these things, and what it would be, people would stay on and listen, because I wanted to win the award from the superintendent that the Hoover's calls were being listened to, and we would win. And so it would make the people at home, instead of just, oh my God, I'm so sick and tired of these calls. And I'm sure many people did that too. But they would kind of, hey, listen to see what else is coming. So that's what's behind that.
So during those calls when you would get, if you didn't attend class, you remember those calls, the
absentee
Oh, yeah,
party.
So if you did star 133, it wouldn't call you back. This is like back in the day.
Circumvent the system, of course, your kids.
Star 333.
Yeah, it was star 333 back in the day. Yeah.
What does star 333 do nowadays?
Connection to the hotline.
Nothing. Doesn't do anything.
Hello.
It was just to bypass the system because it kept calling you back. So
remember, phones. In order to get to the keypad, you gotta leave a certain setting and then go into the keypad. And I mean, who even uses the dial tones anymore?
Yeah, these were calls to the house, so it was meant for the parents to receive it. So it would continuously call. So the trick was you would do star 333 or 133. I mean, it's been a while. And you're able to basically bypass the system so it doesn't call you back.
Yeah. Well, guys, everybody who's watching, if you do have a story to share with us as well, just like Avetis did or Avo did, send it into the chat, whether you're on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Kick, and we'll put it up. We'll see if it's a story that Mr. Welsh can even remember.
Yeah, true.
Because how many students total have you administrated, basically?
Oh, well, if you look at, a population of anywhere from 2,000 to 3,500 students since 1982, I mean, you do the math. There's
that's a lot.
thousands.
82 through 2002?
2010.
2010.
That's like
80.
3 decades of students.
So, I mean,
28 years.
there's thousands.
28 years, say if it's an average of 3,000. Wow, that's
or less. In the there was a period of time when Hoover had really high enrollment. 2001, 2005, 6 went to 3,500, but it dropped back down to 2,200, 2,000. I'm really not quite sure what it is right now. I think it's about 2 or maybe 1,700. I'm not sure.
And in the beginning of the show, I mentioned you have 2 generations here. Let me ask you this: what was your favorite generation to actually work with and administrate? Because you had the generation without the cell phones, without the beepers and all that stuff. And then all that stuff started coming in and technology started, being introduced more and more into the school system. What was one of your favorite generations to actually work with? And I guess I don't even want to say grow up around, but, watch them grow.
I'm not sure how I can answer that. I think there is a nostalgic, romantic piece to me being the dean of students in the first time, and I was at Hoover High School in 82, 83, and being under Don Duncan, and there's that period of time. I think probably nostalgia-wise, I often think back 14 years ago, class of 2010, and that group when I was principal and the sole, leadership administrator on the campus, delegating a lot. I think I'm not sure. I think that's kind of a nostalgic, maybe romantic part of it, but I don't think there is a favorite. I mean, and I'm not copping out on the answer. I just can't think of a particular period of time that I would associate with that. I can remember, and I think we'll probably talk about that later. There were some terribly dark periods. And it's not like they weren't favorite. They were just periods of time that you had to deal with as a school administrator in a community. But I think, probably those years that I was the sole principal, I mean, kind of is what I remember most. But when people started sending me all this stuff and these things, it's hilarious. Just these old funny stories and war stories and many serious things too. Yeah.
What happened to your Instagram and your Facebook once we posted it? Because we posted, I think on Thursday or Friday, Wednesday. You're gonna be on the podcast. What happened to your Instagram and your Facebook?
It really blew up. And of course, there were a lot of likes, but I started to write these things down. A lot of, I still saying kids, don't forget to mention this, to talk about this thing, do this thing. Do you remember this? Do you remember, sort of a story like you did? There were a lot of little things of that nature, plus some very nice compliments. Anything
negative at all?
No, not really. Not really. I expected it because listen, not everybody, in 28 years as a school administrator, and I made some very controversial decisions, and I held kids back from walking the stage if they did not have the requisites for graduation. And that causes a lot of hurt and pain. And actually a few of those I actually kind of regret now that I look back, wonder if it's even worth it. But truthfully, because it made me start to think about it. But no, I didn't. I didn't see, I was expecting a couple of good fuck yous and something else, but I didn't get it.
Well, speaking of fuck
right
yous,
now, but bring it on tonight. Here we go.
Maybe we'll get it in the comment section.
Yeah.
In fact, I see some.
I mean, speaking of fuck yous, I mean, when I reached out to you, I said, Mr. Welsh, I need a photo from you. You sent me that amazing photo with the green mustache, which is very, again, is something very nostalgic as well, because you would every St. Patrick's Day, I remember Mr. Welsh with the green mustache. And you sent me this, and I looked at it, and I shared it with the boys. I said, "Can we make this work?" And you were like, I reached back out to you. I said, "Mr. Welsh, do you have any other photo that we can use?" And you sent me that infamous picture from 20 years ago?
Yeah, the guy wrote "fuck Welsh." I couldn't resist wanting to stand right next to the column with it. It's great.
And that's the one we use.
So,
I mean, go ahead, Joe.
No, there's a reason why we chose that. Not because it says, fuck Welsh.
Go ahead and say it. It's all right, man.
No. The whole reason of it is because it takes you back to that time where, it just takes you back to that time, and the look on your face. It was literally the type of look where it's like, I know that they're kids. I know that they don't know any better, and you knew that there was going to be something even more in their lives that they had to worry about besides Welsh, and you knew that one day you would probably even end up in a podcast with most of your students. I mean, I just feel like it was a lot more in that picture than just a simple photograph. That's why we decided to choose that.
I think when you say the nice things, I think part of it that helped me gravitate towards students and vice versa was that I tried not to take myself that serious at it, and could take shots and could let people thrash and bring it on, especially in the privacy of the office too, and things of that nature. It released a lot of tension if people didn't know that I was that overly sensitive about something.
Well, it goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, was your approach to everything. I specifically remember, we had a no hats policy on campus unless it was a Hoover hat,
Right.
unless it had an H on it.
Gang hats, right?
And I remember there, I had a couple of hats that I would wear, and they were plain. And you would always say that, has to be a Hoover hat, has to be a Hoover hat. So I ended up taking some white tape and I put an H on it. And you would always come up to us and you'd pull us aside. You'd be like, "Is that a Hoover hat?" Like, "Yeah, it has an H on it." You're like, "Don't be a smartass with me." It's like,
You didn't have Trump hats back then, huh?
unfortunately, there weren't any Trump hats back then to wear. But I'd have to
'Cause
put
we
we'd have to put a big H over the Trump.
We had the letter belts when I was in school. All the guys would wear the belts with their initial A or
That's so techy.
J or K,
Yeah.
whatever it was. I don't know if you remember those.
I
belts.
do.
Yeah. The metal buckles.
I kind of
so
remember the
tacky.
Rabis buckles more than
Rabis.
that,
The Rabis.
The
buckles?
Rabis
Rabis
buckles. I dressed
buckles.
up like that on a Halloween, the pointed shoes and stuff.
Yes.
I was hot stuff.
How much Armenian do you know at this point? I mean, you've been around Armenians more than most Armenians have. That's
I should know more, but I'm very well versed in the inappropriate words. But
as is everybody else.
I should know more though.
So there's a question that's saying gang hats. What is that? So I just wanted to make sure that they get, that answered, because I don't think that exists now, does it?
Gang hats?
Yeah, you know how, because they removed the whole gang.
Yeah.
I mean, they put that rule for the hats because they were gang affiliation.
Look, I remember at the time we had a very strict dress code policy, and
Right.
I know Clark at the time. Clark was more of and I think until today was they had to wear the polos and khakis. We were okay with jeans and stuff, but we had a very strict dress code policy. Like, for example, there was a lot of guys that wore the super baggy jeans, and
the Dickies.
yeah, girls couldn't wear the spaghetti straps. I mean, the hats, jerseys were also
Yeah, well,
prohibited.
the hat thing, the genesis of that was that there were some gang issues that guys would wear Raiders hats or Cincinnati Red hats or something, whatever. And there were issues and fights and things like this that were starting to happen more than just just something that would happen randomly. So the whole idea behind it was, and we didn't want any outsiders coming in on campus. This was before 9/11. This was before those tragedies. This was before where the campus was more open and people could kind of walk through. And when we banned the hats and only had a Hoover hat, we would instinctively know by just looking around the quad. And you're a good administrator, you're always kind of looking around and seeing the various elements, and you're posted on different places. And you're talking with people, but you're looking. You could instantaneously tell if that was somebody that should not have been on campus wearing a hat. And that the idea of that was a safety valve. It worked well for a while.
Yeah, well, we had a closed campus from when I attended. I started Hoover 2000, and it was a closed campus. Once you were in, you were in. You couldn't get out.
Yeah.
Whereas with CV, I remember CV was, I think till today, is an open campus, so you could leave.
Well, if you were a fine, outstanding student like yourself, you couldn't get out. But there were many who figured out how to do it.
Yep.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, one of the flaws was security. I mean, yes.
Well,
Wait. During our time, listen. When we went to Hoover in 2000, we had police officers on campus. And there was a reason behind it, which we'll get into, obviously. But
remember Officer Cisneros?
Exactly, Cisneros, and he was on he was on campus.
No, man, the not Fox Cisneros, the Latina.
I don't know. I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember. I remember we had.
Cisneros,
I
or
remember
was
we
it- am
had
I
one.
saying wrong?
If anybody's listening in the comments,
She was a
let-
police officer. She's a Glendale police
Yeah,
officer.
we had
Cisneros.
one on campus, but we actually had security guards, and I noticed as time went on, they went from security guards to rent-a-cops,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
if it was
Rent-a-cop.
if it was senior ditch day and we were leaving, whether you were a junior or sophomore or senior, and you decided to leave with your friends, if you were climbing that fence to leave campus and you saw the frail security guard that was telling you to get down, you'd look at them and you'd be like, all right, what is this person going to do?
Yeah.
And you'd continue to leave campus. But when I first attended Hoover in the year 2000, security would run after you and they would climb the fence with you and drag you back down. And I remember there were these two big Latino guys that were our security guards, and there was no way you were getting away from those guys if you were ditching. And then by the time I was gone, I'm sure you'll remember, Mr. Welsh, we had this really frail, skinny female security guard.
I'm writing, I'm not promoting it, but it sounds like I am, and I'm pimping for it. I am writing a book about my experiences as a school administrator. And one of the chapters is security guards I have known and loved, and just the various kinds and qualities of security guards. And some really good. Like we had one guy, and I'll be happy to say his name, Mike Boykins, where he's supposed to be. That one guy could do everything and be everywhere at once. I mean, he was fantastic to others that were practically comical. And I'll never forget, we'd give a printout to one guy who was brand new and he looked like he could really do the job, and gave him a printout of where all the students, old school. Now it's all done on a phone digitally, but he would know where. Well, we didn't find out later. It was really sad. He was illiterate. He couldn't read. So, hey, where are you going? Okay, yeah, I'm right here. And it was really sad. I mean, it's kind of comical in one sense that here we're giving a guy a list to see where students are, and it matched their story that they told him. And the other one, and actually we helped him out and got him into a program so he could,
Learn to
develop his literacy and stuff. But yeah, one of the chapters is about security guards.
And you remember who I'm talking about as far as
Yes.
certain security guards.
Yes.
Okay, because I just want to.
Oh yeah.
Whoever is it, 2004, 5, 3 alumni.
And it's a lot more sophisticated these days, very much more sophisticated in schools and school districts and what they do. And the school district at that time went through 2 or 3 kind of agencies. And sometimes it was just like, I would recognize what you just said. And it was just, here's a walkie and a body, and we're just going to put you there and just, report back. And some others would have a lot more initiative and could do things and could actually deal with the give and take with teenagers and not make a big thing about it if somebody didn't obey you,
Definitely. But, Hoover has its ups and downs. And I think it was after the 80s, Hoover took somewhat of I don't want to call it a downward spiral in Glendale, because that's what was depicted by the media and by certain people. But there were certain incidents that took place at Hoover that kind of tarnished the reputation of the school. In 1995, we can start there. 1995, Tony Petrosian was a victim who was stabbed. And this was off campus, but Tony Petrosian was a student at Hoover.
3 weeks from graduation, June of 95.
So do you remember? Because as an administrator, I want to get your perspective. Do you remember what happened and how everything was portrayed by the media, by the board, by the school, by the staff, by the parent? What happened exactly to Mr. Welsh at that time?
95 with Tony Petrosian, the shooting of Ava DeMerchant on School Street in 1998, and the stabbing and death of Raul Aguirre on Cinco de Mayo in 2000. A series of those 3 things from 95 to 2000 destroyed the reputation of the school. Anybody who heard of Hoover High School would think this is where you're going to go to get beaten up or you're going to be killed. It was devastating. But it didn't match the devastation that it did for the grief of the families involved. But it also had other repercussions that lasted for 10 years or more, because when Tony Petrosian first happened, in my opinion, and I'm not basing this on data or inquiry to do this, but it was the first time I think that Armenians were shocked, Armenian families in Glendale, that the evils of American society have now inflicted themselves on Armenian kids. And then, but it was inter-Armenian, between Armenian groups. And then in the Avo de Merchant one, again, it was between Armenian groups, which not only exposed tensions between Russian Armenians and Iranian Persian Armenians, been around Glendale a long time. It also led to further stereotyping in the broader community, not just the school, in the broader community of Glendale about, hey, these Armenians are dangerous people and all this kind of stuff. It led to that. And then in 2000, the lid was blown off because that underbelly of tension for many years in the hoods, in the communities, in school with Latinos and Armenians, it exploded with the fact that kids, and again, they didn't go to the school. They came by and engaged with him. He wasn't a gangbanger. He was sitting out in front of school, all of this just horrible things that happened. And it just destroyed the reputation of the school for years to come. And as a school administrator, again, the grief and the impact on families, but as a school administrator, it was probably the loneliest and most difficult time to have to deal with something like that. And because people come at you, the media is what I learned, and I've taught assistant principals who become principals, is that even if you have fabulous and wonderful and heroic people in school, great individual administrators, teachers, counselors, support staff, when something like that happens, that violence, the institution will never be the hero, even though you have heroic people there, and they come at you. And boy, those were just really controversial times. And in terms of the blame, why wasn't there supervision? Where were people? And all the litigation and things like that. And you can't really respond to those things because of that. But what we did do, and we can talk about that too later, is we did many steps as a team in terms of healing and doing steps and programs to try to address those things honestly. Yeah, we got racial problems, and I think it impacted the Armenian community for years.
Because there were a lot of, I remember in the 90s, there were a lot of fights at school, but that was the first time where somebody was actually killed in 1995. There were always, I remember fights happening, especially initially between Armenians and Mexicans, or even amongst some of the Armenian groups too. But Tony Petrosian's situation was over nothing. It was over some sound system, some
car stereo
system.
As
and it took place at Brand Park.
As are all of these, most of these things. When you pull them apart, they're just this stupid in your face, what's up, and this type of thing, and then it escalates. And I bring backup, and I bring all these things, and people, doing their badass talk, and this guy comes, and everything else. It was just,
and poor Juan's was, or Raul's, I'm sorry, poor Raul's was, he was just sitting there. The fight broke out, and he was there to kind of split everybody up. And in the midst of it,
he wasn't a banger. He was a civilian, but he lived in the hood. He was a civilian. He had gotten out of baseball practice. He was sitting at the bus stop, and but he lived in the hood. He knew these guys. The guy that came up to him was actually a banger. And then when the kids drove by, driven by a 14-year-old girl, when they drove by, they engaged with him and came out of the car to engage and start a fight with the gangbanger. And Raul, as you see in violent situations, goes in to help, and he was brutally stabbed. And I just talking about these things, it's just like gives me a visceral feeling just remembering that. And I remember I was in the gym doing my Welsh thing with the dance program, the dance teacher who wanted me to be a part of the dance concert, which was going to be that weekend. And I was going to be in this scene with them, and I wasn't dancing, but I was going to be some kind of a motif in the thing. And I had the walkie on the side, and I'll never forget this young girl, Arpene, and she just came to me and she said, "Mr. Welsh, you need to hear this." And okay. What's up? I'm trying to understand what's going on. Welsh get to the front of school and all this kind of stuff. And then when I go hauling down there, I'm really not quite sure what's happening, and then ran across the street. It was terrible. There was Raul lying on the toll side of the street, and you see the color draining from his face. Paramedics pulled up, and they turned him over, and they just literally almost threw his body into the back of the truck and just drove off. And then we found out later, and that was on Cinco de Mayo, and it of all days, and it just exploded. The issue that was an underbelly of tension between Latinos and Armenians, and what we did as a team later, and I had wonderful partners as co-principals, Pamela Good and Hazmik Daneli and Hazmik John, is we had these camps. We took kids to Big Bear, Camp Fox, kids that had never seen the snow, seen the beach. Got everybody together on the mountaintop doing good things. It reduced tension quite a bit. Also, prior to that, 98, started a program, kind of has a corny title, Spirit, Student Problem Identifying, Resolving It Together. And if Ani Nazarian is out there, or Louis Macias somewhere, they were, Edith Kachatrian is out there. She became a teacher later. These are, I'll plug them because they were wonderful kids that got together to address racism on campus and have a group of diverse kids to sit down and talk about these things. And they were not just, those three kids were great, but the idea was to get, there are kids that can be the tough and bad kids in school who are leaders too. The idea was not just to get the ASB kid and the advanced placement kid. The idea was to get kids in this group that were from disparate groups on campus, but that, they might be perceived as negative or a bad kid, but they were leaders. They would talk and people listen. But it changed, those incidents that happened in a row. It changed for years the image of Hoover High School. It was
big time, because during Raul's incident, I was at Toll, and I remember Toll was shut down as well, as far as the entire school, and everybody was just in mourning over what had taken place, because it was a local who had passed away and was stabbed by people who weren't even locals. They were outsiders.
Yeah, and it impacted Keppel. I mean, you obviously the street patterns changed. The Glenwood Road changed. School
became
Street
one way.
Yeah, all the street patterns changed. Everything was done, and if there was a bad news day geopolitically and politically in the United States, Hoover High School was on the news.
Yeah.
It just ignited it.
Which brings me back to what my parents thought. Now, here's me getting ready to graduate Toll, and I'm going to be going over to Hoover High School right across the street, being raised by Armenian parents who saw what took place, now are completely freaked out. And at the time, we had just moved to Northwest Glendale. So my brother was finishing his senior year at Glendale High School. Glendale High School was a completely different school than Hoover was. Now that incident had taken place, my parents were like, what can we do to get you to Glendale High? Because that's where we want you to go. We don't want you to go to Hoover. Now, and obviously at the time, moving to a different district, I had no choice. My only choice was to go to Clark. Obviously, I applied to Clark, and it was a lottery system. I didn't get in. And my parents were freaked out. They were like, it's Hoover High School. Be careful. Watch your surroundings. Don't get involved in fights. Don't get involved with gangs. And it's like, at the time, you're a kid going into a new school. Your parents are telling you X, Y, Z. You're seeing all this in the news. Now you're going into a new school, new environment, completely paranoid. I could only imagine what other parents who were stricter than my parents were going through, delivering their children, especially our Armenian parents, thinking that, oh my God, there's this big rivalry between Armenians and Latinos, because there really wasn't at Hoover, in my opinion, Mr. Welsh. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, but
it was a small margin of individuals.
Most of the kids went to school, did their thing, and left, participated in activities, clubs, athletics, music, whatever. And that was the majority. But of course, the minority would erupt. But it would happen outside of school. It would happen in the hoods, in the communities.
Well, the three
And people, and you're a child, you're listening to parents at home, and there was, and this is my perspective. I'm not a sociologist, but the Latinos were the primary minority in Glendale for many years.
yes,
And suddenly, with the breakup of the Soviet Empire and that horrible earthquake, you have this mass infusion of Russian Armenians into the community, into the dense areas south of Hoover High School. When I first started at Hoover High School in '82, the vast majority of kids came to school, walked in from Olmsted.
yes.
Hoover primarily looked like this, okay? And so that's white,
White Irish.
Yeah, old white man. Geez, that sounds like something politically. Oh, never mind. So and you have this problem that happens in the communities. Something happens outside of school. Something happens at the 7-Eleven. Something happens at Brand Park. We don't necessarily hear about it. It comes into school the next day, and
those three incidents that took place were all off campus.
right.
All of it was on School Street. One was in front of the school, but none of Raul was in front of the school, but none of them were on campus.
Right. And the moment I would try to argue that, it would be scoffed at and laughable, because it didn't matter. It didn't matter. They were still involved at Hoover High School. The school was tagged. It didn't matter that it was off campus. It just didn't matter to people. It was the perception that this was right on Glenwood Road. This was on School Street. This was a Hoover student at Grand Park. These are Hoover kids. It didn't matter. It just didn't matter. And it was just brutal. And I do want to say that when I became the sole principal in 2005-06, Superintendent Mike Escalani, you got to get these people not to leave. That fear that your parents had was a fear shared by hundreds of parents. And you have a lot of those parents from Keppel and Balboa who are socioeconomically very wealthy. They were people in the industry. They lived in those $1 million homes above Hoover. My job was to get all people, including Jefferson and other schools, don't leave Hoover High School. And I do want to plug a parent. Her name is Joan Zierhut. I don't know if she's watching, and I've lost contact. I shouldn't have, but I heard she was quite influential, and I approached her and said, hey, everybody's afraid to come to Hoover. I'm principal. Now, I understand you know a lot of people from Keppel and Toll. Can you organize a wine and cheese? I'll be happy to pay for it. Can you invite people to your house, and I'd be a guest? And she did, and because she very much believed in Hoover and public education. And so she had hey, Joni here, Zierhut's having a party, and Kevin Welsh is coming. Well, who's Kevin Welsh, kind of a thing. But they all showed up, crammed in her home. And I had kidding around. Great to see all you people. And a couple of them were movie industry types, actors. And I said, I know you're here to talk about the instructional program at Hoover. And I said, no, I know you're not. The elephant in the room is you're afraid to send your kid there because he's going to get killed or beaten up. So let's talk about that, because I can brag and I can have Hoover compete instructionally, arts, whatever you want to talk about, academic decathlon, advanced placement, all the facets, but you're worried about safety. So let's talk about that. So we did these programs, these little parties. And then we did the fun stuff, getting the ASB kids to take the kids to the Friday night lights and the football games and having fun stuff and bringing them on campus. I got the Keppel principal to, hey, can you get the kids out of class? Let's have the kids walk around campus. Hey, look at that big badass dude standing there in the corner with the deep voice, looking at him, and he's frightened of the kid. And I go up to the kid, hey, Armin, what's happening, man? Talking. And I would tell the parent, your kid's going to be a teenager in 6 or 7 years. They go through changes. And it just took years to build back the reputation of the school. And it was done as a team effort. This was a team effort to do. I had wonderful people working on this, but it took years to bring back the reputation of the school, that you wouldn't be beaten up or killed if you went there.
And it's sad because when you look at the Armenian community, the Latino community, the Korean community, they're all very similar. Yeah, they're different cultures, different races, but at the same time, they're very similar as well. They have three very important things in common. One of them is family, the other one is food, and the other, and the last one is they all have some sort of culture that kind of ties into each other.
Yeah, but you have to remember, in the 90s, it was all of this was new to us, and it was new to the Latino community, to the Korean community. I mean, there were no issues with the Koreans, but it was new to them, who are Armenians. These guys showing up from where? All of a sudden, they have their own area in the school, because we all had kind of different groups that we hung out in school, right?
Of course.
And during lunchtime, for instance, who was the one that would get in line first for the buffet, cafeteria? What was it called, the buffet or cafeteria?
Cafeteria.
Yeah.
Cafeteria.
So all these little things, I mean, you're marking your territory, and all of a sudden your territory is being taken away by this new group, which you have no idea who they are, what they stand for. So it took time for all of us to kind of blend and realize that, okay, we have a lot more things in common than not.
Yeah,
You know,
well, unfortunately,
when you
the
said-
Armenians were divided as well, because you had the Persian Armenians, you had the Lebanese Armenians, you had the Russian Hayastansi Armenians. So I remember with Hoover, each one had their little clique in different areas.
Oh, I could find any kid on campus. I knew exactly
Oh,
where
yeah,
they were.
of course.
I mean, I knew, but you mentioned about the culture. We'd have international days, and I was reminded because one of the kids on Instagram reminding me, because she was still pissed off about it, was we'd have international day, and what is more unifying than food and smelling these great food and Korean barbecue and tacos and baklava and all this kind of stuff. And they would always be pissed when I'd say no flags. Oh, come on, we got to have our flag. I got to have the Ecuadorian flag. No flags. Not going to have. There's 2 flags that fly on campus, maybe 3. United States flag, California flag, and maybe the Hoover flag. That's it. Because as soon as the flags got involved,
Cultural.
it became a soccer match. It became the World Cup. As soon as the flags got involved, and then the dancing would happen, and then the flag would go out, and that's when the problems happened, because then you'd see that flag, that guy would have to have his flag, and one time we had a problem. So I just said, no, we're going to have it. We're not going to have it. But
you're lucky you're not in the ministry now. There's a lot more flags now.
Oh, there's a lot of flags. And when you talk about being an administrator, I know what I went through and what our team did to go through. And I know, and I had a wonderful career, and it had some terribly difficult moments. But being a school administrator today, and I'm still a consultant coach, and I do coach high school principals, administrators, and I do coach teacher leaders. It is an enormously challenging. My thing doesn't even compare to what they're going through today and the vast changes that have happened in society.
Because we've discussed some of that on the show over the years, as far as, because as you're speaking about how you had to handle the situation and gain the parents and the community's trust back, which took years. But so I was trying to compare that to when these schools unfortunately experience a mass shooting. How are they supposed to overcome that? And we've discussed as far as why schools don't have better security or better systems in place for students or anybody to be able to go in and out of the campus. And I mean, who better than to ask you as far as what your input is on that? Because it seems like these incidents always occur with some student who's no longer attending and happens to have some type of grudge or vengeance or something against a specific group in that school, where they come back and they end up killing so many innocent children and staff. How does one protect the school and the students and the staff from such incidents?
Well, you've seen and heard the same violent incidents, some terribly, 16 kids shot at a school and killed, different things of that nature too. Not as many as that. The way our society has sadly, tragically, and frighteningly evolved in the past 30 years and what is available to young people out there that you can do on this that you couldn't do 30 years ago, 14 years ago. You can have all the security in the world and good security and great staff. And I'm not sure that can prevent somebody who is willfully wanting to do that and do violence. But schools and those that I've seen as in my experience now as a consultant, they have very strong systems of security about who gets in on campus, who can be on campus, more sophisticated in terms of cameras. And if kids use the laptops and Chromebooks on campus, if they are typing in certain keywords, that are algorithms that are going to come up with hate or violence or suicide, that triggers calls to administrators in the district that a young person is typing that stuff in, to where now with the sophistication of technology you didn't have before. I know of several incidents that it's not in terms of violence, but I know of several incidents where a young person has had an intervention because they were typing that stuff on their school computer.
So it's being monitored on the Chromebooks that they're using on campus or off campus.
Well, I'm not going to speak for the Glendale Unified School District, but I am speaking of a couple of districts that I know of that is probably something that is being done on other campuses that triggers that. Now, about security, no, I do think it's a sign of the times. I do think there has to be secure campuses and cameras. I always was one for a proponent to have police on campus, and a lot of people still struggle with that. And there's a lot of, I mean, you talk about police and the issue of police in the United States, we're getting into another level of an argument, depending upon how you look at it. But, you know, the police officers that were, they call them school resource officers.
Yeah.
You know, they had to be a certain type. Like when I hired a teacher, besides their academic background, I wanted to know, first thing I asked them was, do you like teenagers? Can you put up with kids giving do you like teenagers? And the police officers that we had, there were cops that wouldn't dare want to be around a teenager and couldn't stand the back and forth and the back talk. But you know, most of the SROs that we had were good with teenagers.
Well, you know, this goes back to what we were speaking about literally 30 minutes ago, as far as SROs. Entering freshman year of Hoover, there was a police officer on campus. Come sophomore, junior, and senior year, we no longer had a police officer on campus. Yeah, we had a police officer come and go, but for some reason, and again, you know, I don't remember exactly what the purpose was or what the reason was. Why was it that the police officer that had that office right where the entrance was from the administration, from the administration hall, why was that police officer's office taken away, and why was the police officer removed from campus? Because, you know, we've mentioned this on the show multiple times.
Those were budget issues between the city of Glendale and the school
that's
district.
what we don't understand, because we've asked this question to the school district. It's like, what budget? I mean, what does it cost to have security? Let's say $50 an hour. They're there for 40 hours a week. It's not a lot of money.
I don't think a Glendale police officer is $50 an hour. I think that's a much greater expense, and I'm not sure how they work that out. Because I designate them more, Armin, and I'm not trying to be peevish about a point. When I think of security, I think of a security guard, good ones that we had and some comical ones. And like when I think of police, I refer to them as a police officer. That's actually a law enforcement officer, part of that's contracted with the school district. And
and the reason why we've spoken about this multiple times, especially after, you know, the devastating shootings that have taken place. And again, God forbid this ever takes place in any school. It doesn't matter whether it's in California or outside. It doesn't matter. No child should ever be harmed by any individual with a lethal weapon. But, we've said that. Imagine if the individual that's walking into that school to do harm sees a police officer or sees somebody, whether it's a former Marine or a veteran, that's armed and ready to protect that school. That individual is going to second guess walking on campus. Why isn't it that we can't forget the police officer? Why isn't it that we can't hire a former Navy SEAL or a former Marine or a former Army, some sort of veteran who is willing and able to protect kids and wants a job? See, those conversations come up with the district, and anytime we've brought it up, it's always brushed under the rug.
Well, no, it comes up. It's like, well, no, you know how much it costs. But the reason I say $50 is because, for example, if you ask me, I'd rather be a police officer at a school getting $50 an hour than be on the streets patrolling for $75, $80 an hour. Why? Because I'm not pulling over some random car where I have no idea if they're going to shoot at me or not. I'm pretty much in a school environment with teenagers, let's say, where what's the worst case scenario, right? I mean, most kids, see, that's the thing. The whole image itself, if they're dressed in a certain way where they're intimidating and all that, that in itself is gonna do half the job itself. Because I was telling the guys the story of a few months ago, or maybe about a year or so ago, when I went to this shoe store on Melrose. The security guard looked like he was a Navy SEAL. The guy was suited up like we're going into Afghanistan or something. But he was just a security guard at a shoe store. And he was intimidating. And I bet most people who are thinking, well, I'm going to grab the sneaker and run out, when they see him, they're like, this guy's got enough ammunition to take down half of LA. I think I'm okay. I'll go to the next store. So it's that, I think it's that intimidation factor, but also what's been lost over the generations is, see, I remember we had respect for authority. We had respect for teachers and administrators and parents and law enforcement. Now, everything is about, let me find the stupidest thing I can post on social media so it can go viral, whether that means videotaping some poor kid getting bullied and beaten up in the bathroom because I think I can get 2 million views. So there's no respect. There's no fear for authority anymore. I think that's what society has lost, and that's why we've got these mass shootings and these incidents happening in school, which, even though we had fights when I grew up, I think those fights, I take that over all this bullshit that's going on today in the school campuses, because now everything is being posted online, and what in turn that's causing is the students ending up taking their own lives or harming themselves, because now, where back then only 20 people knew about it, now 20, 30, 50, hundreds of millions of people can eventually get to see it.
Well, yeah, back to your point about the police officer. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but when you were saying, if I was a cop and I much rather be on campus rather than be on the patrol and the beat. My point to that was, you're also a police officer that likes teenagers and likes to be around adolescents. And most of those SROs, maybe they were intimidating. You get called, the police officer's going to talk to you. Of course, a good kid's going to be nervous about that. But they weren't necessarily like that Navy SEAL that just looked intimidating on sight, but they were a police officer. They were law enforcement, but they developed relationships with kids.
Absolutely.
They picked up intel. They did a lot of prevention that way. But to your other point, on a broader scale, globally, whether it's not just Glendale, California, but the nation, but one of the major issues facing public education today is funding. And when it comes down to making decisions about funding, where are you going to put that money when it comes to staffing? When you see the challenges of educators today, when you see test scores, when you see math and the various different tests and those types of things, which are hot button issues, and those needs and the needs of diverse children and special needs and special education and language arts, and limited English speaking and non-English speaking, where are you going to put that into more police officers to be on campus, or are you going to put that in educational tools and staffing and programs, which speaks to the quintessence of being an educator? You're hoping that by education, by engendering and engaging people in those things, you're planting those seeds to prevent it. But at the same time, you're going up against what you just talked about, is the proliferation of what somebody can do virally here in an instant to see thousands of people. And let's not forget about the mental health of teenagers today. It's really a challenging thing in a kid's life to be an adolescent today and having this as it was 14 years ago or 30 years ago or whatever it was with you guys.
Yeah, because
I mean,
bullying as well has
Well, you
become
got mental
more
health issues, and you've got kids that can sit and they're on their phone and they can go on the dark web and they can see all this crap out there that impacts them. And I mean, it is changed about.
So should maybe phones be banned in schools? Because
you can't.
Why not?
You can't ban the phones from school because it's become.
Why do they need it?
Look, it's become a norm now. In order to have a phone, they look at it as for emergency purposes. If I need to get a hold of my child, and again,
go to the office.
I know. Look,
I wish they could. There's schools that I don't mean, but there are schools that are implementing programs.
Look, it's a double-edged sword, big time double-edged sword, because technology has advanced so quickly that if your child doesn't have the phone, it becomes something that's completely off. Like, let me ask you a question. And please answer it honestly. If you left the house and you left your wallet at home, or if you left your phone at home, would you go back for your wallet or would you go back for your phone?
Well, my phone has my wallet on it, so
you see that?
Look, yeah, but you're comparing me to a teenager.
Okay, that's you. Now, Mr. Welsh, let me ask you: if you drove off, you were on your way to the WiseNuts, and you left your wallet at home, and you left your phone at home, which one would you go back for?
I'd go back for my phone.
Look, unfortunately, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. This has become somewhat of a.
I understand, but why does a 14-year-old have to have it? Let them have it at home. Why is it necessary in school? I mean,
it's completely different.
Can I give this a shot?
Go ahead.
Okay. So there are programs, there are schools that have implemented and have worked with kids and parents. The outright ban becomes a revolution. Okay? Because of what you said. It's a norm that people want to reach their kids because of incidents of safety and anything else they got to hear. They hear there's a shooting, they hear there's something, they got to reach their kid. That's an instinct. So banning it outright is just not going to happen. But it depends upon the context. It depends upon the culture of the community. There are schools currently that are doing this where they have worked with. They've phased it in where the phone goes in the book bag, the backpack, goes in there for class time. Okay. It's not used until nutrition or snack or lunch. They may modify that for in the halls. How you can imagine how difficult it is to try.
Yeah.
Right. But if they work with the kids about it and it's not like the old days, put that thing away. I'm going to send you down to Welsh. You're going to get detention, Saturday detention. You're going to get suspended. There's a lot more of this aggravating negotiation to go on. And a lot of it depends upon the staff, the communities, the context of what's been happening. But there are successful programs. And there are a lot of kids who actually agree with this, that realize it is an impediment to instruction.
Look at it this way. Let's say if you're having a meeting with one of your clients, right? And your client's like, you know what, Arno, do you mind? I'm going to take a video of this meeting. Are you going to be comfortable?
It's going to be awkward.
Imagine I'm sitting down with one of my employees discussing a situation, possible write-up or whatever. And they're like, you know what, Armand, if you don't mind, I'm going to video this whole meeting. That's what's happening in schools. These teachers cannot even teach anything or discipline or do anything because any small little situation, somebody's got their phone up and all of a sudden it's on Instagram. Oh, look, Mrs. Johnson is not teaching this correctly, or Mrs. Johnson is making threatening, which obviously it's all blown out of proportion.
Yeah, of course, because the media has to find something sexy.
But it's a clickbait, right? It's clickbait. And then next thing you know, you're on Fox News explaining yourself as to why you were trying to explain to these kids that there's nothing racist about math. One thing led to another because it was all.
See, during our time, what would happen is, and again, it's completely different generation. We had the Razor flip phones, the LG flip phones, where camera phones were just kind of being introduced.
We didn't even have that.
Yeah,
bro.
you guys didn't even have that. You guys had
We
the
barely had
pagers.
pencils.
We didn't even have
pencils
pagers.
and
Yeah,
pencil
you guys were
sharpeners.
speaking in Morse code.
Yeah.
But,
we were setting up signals with
smoke signals,
so-
yeah. But look, during our time, it was more of a, if Mr. Welsh saw you with the phone in your hand, whether it was during class or outside during snack, lunch, give me your phone. You'll pick it up after school. And they would confiscate your phone. Your phone was gone. That's it. You're not going to see it until the end of the school day.
So what's wrong with not having that?
Well, that if we can implement that, but the problem is at the time, this is, mind you, this is 2004, 2003, 2005. I'd say maybe one in every 30 or 40 kids may have had a phone.
Yeah, but look, it's what that's leading to, and I see this in 20-year-olds. Like, and I always point it out to them. Like, for example, there's family friends who have kids who are in their early 20s, or we have nephews, nieces. I swear, I've never seen the phone not in their hand ever. And we can be on a 3-day, 1-week trip. The phone, not for one split second, is ever not in their hand or somewhere like here or in the pot. And I'm like, just put your fucking phone on the table. Just come sit next to the pool. You're not a trauma physician. You just put the gun.
You're not on call.
Yeah, like just put it there. They can't. I swear. I'm like, put it there. They'll put it there, and then like they're just
their
antsy.
arm
Like,
is just like
I'm like, bro,
reaching.
just pick up the phone before you have a stroke. Like that. It's funny, but it's not, because
but that's become all of us.
no, bro. If I swear to you, if it wasn't for the type of work I do, where I have to always be available, I swear when I go home, I just throw this thing on the somewhere on the aisle, far somewhere. I just throw. I'm like, I'll put it on loud. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to hear it. A lot of my group texts are all on silent because I don't want to be constantly responding to people.
So that's why he responds to us.
That's
And
why
now-
he responds so
and
little.
now throw AI, throw
Imagine.
AI into the max of what kids can get on their phone and the impact that has on education and classroom instruction, and what that impact is now too.
That's the thing.
And why
they can't
districts
focus.
are now sponsoring programs to educate teachers and to show them how AI can be used and utilized as a teaching supplemental tool in the classroom, and to be used like the example of some
ChatGPT, is that what you're talking about?
English language arts teachers will have drafting essays and things of that nature. They'll let the kids have the phone and do the AI in the classroom and be looking at that thing. But when they do the final version, they're writing the essay in class as an example and not using
By
that.
hand.
Yes.
Look,
Oh, see?
I'm guilty of it myself. Sometimes if I get I'm on the phone at the office, right? I swear, if I accidentally just pick up the phone and I look at a text, and then next thing I know, I'm scrolling through some bullshit social media while I'm on a call, I have no idea what we're discussing because now I've been distracted. So whenever I'm on the office line, I make it a point, for the most part, where I put it on silent and I flip it upside down so I'm not distracted by it. Because if I'm on a phone call and this lights up, next thing you know, I'm checking a text, and then between the text, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm listening to a podcast while I'm on a phone call. And I have no idea what we discussed because I wasn't paying attention.
It's the algorithms as well.
You got discipline,
Yeah.
but you're not a teenager.
I said I'm also guilty of that. So
Yeah.
I have to make it a point and constantly remind myself, listen, you're on a call, put this stupid thing away.
But again, it's the algorithms as well. And again, like, see, when you look at some of the stuff with us, you'll open up my Instagram, you have a bunch of stuff about sports, food, steaks, burgers with these
that's
kids.
Can we look at it?
Absolutely. You want
Yeah.
to take a look at it?
Yeah, please.
All right, hold on.
Joe, can we put it on?
What do you want to look? What do
They
you
want-
guys
they
wanna
wanna look at my
algorithm. Let's put it on the screen for
All right.
everybody to see the
What-
algorithm.
Don't
All
even.
right, I'm going to refresh it so you can take a look at it. There you go. You can take a look at it.
That's
Wait, let me
disgusting.
refresh it again. But no, in all seriousness,
What was that last one, dude? That was
You see, Mr. Welsh?
the hell,
You see,
man?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, when I open my app, it's all about quantum physics and, climate change.
Yeah, right.
But some of these kids are looking at the stupidest videos in the world, and it goes back to what Mr. Welsh was saying. They're teenagers. They go after the views, and they go after what's hip and what's popping nowadays.
Yeah, some of them are making a hell of a lot of money doing it too.
And unfortunately, that's another problem that we have, because the educational system, that we're providing, and we've said it before in the past on the show, the United States has the best educational system because we have the best universities, we have the best schools, and the public school system provides it to you for free. I mean, yeah, it's tax money, but probably that's another story on its own. But it's free. You could take advantage of it, and you can go to school for free, attend a great university. But unfortunately, there are other fake avenues being portrayed online, where these kids are showing crypto and TikToks and Instagram reels where, oh, look at how much money I'm making. How rare that is for any Joe Schmo, and no offense, Joe, but any Joe Schmo to basically just make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars off of this.
Well, there's a big difference back from when we used to go to school and what it is today. There actually used to be like crafts or like actual like auto shop, for example.
Seriously, metal shop, wood
auto shop,
home
wood
ec.
shop. Yeah, remember the photography rooms where we would produce like photos that we took with film.
Photoshop, photo. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
All those
Industrial
stuff were
arts.
removed.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
I remember in middle school, Mr. McKnight.
exactly.
Again, not to name
it
drop.
seems like they
Mr.
McKnight was metal shop, right?
Was metal shop, and he was industrial arts, where we did photos. We did what do you call those things where you do with silk screening with t-shirts?
T-shirts.
We-
Yeah,
what
I mean, my
happened
first
to all
fake
that?
Versace shirt.
Yeah, seriously.
They have they're
Budgeting again, Mr. Welsh?
no, they have
Toxic masculinity.
they have evolved. They have evolved.
To what?
You have, well, for example, you want to talk about the old wood shop.
Yes.
Wood shop today on many campuses are industry pathway courses and it's a construction academy.
Is there?
Yes, that on many
Construction academy?
Absolutely.
I've never heard of it.
Absolutely. Well, tonight you have. Part of the reason is thinking back to the way things were and actually looking at and finding what is out there. There are programs in school which are, you might want to call them linked. It's one of these terms, linked learning, which involves rigorous academics, career technical skills, along with student supports, and actual field work-based internship experiences that are out there in many public high schools and campuses across the nation, and in California in particular, in which you will see kids involved. What you would think was an old wood shop, they're now in construction. Something you would think in metal shop is now mechanical engineering. A lot of it is now driven by technology and also to give kids who may not be exposed and want to necessarily go to college, but give them employable skills mentored by people in the actual industry along with the teacher, seeing them out there in the community that are going to be involved in these things, whether it's from agriculture, multimedia, construction, arts, entertainment, hospitality, different things of that, where kids are actually involved in pathways at the school that are like little schools within schools, and actually have mentors involved in, instead of cooking or foods class. Okay, it's culinary arts now, where kids are actually learning the skills to be chefs, and also things that they could use in any endeavor that they want to go into.
Well, we have home economics?
Yes, they had home economics as well.
I wasn't aware they have mechanical engineering,
I didn't either.
architecture, and construction.
There are these programs.
Nobody's ever brought it to our attention. All these school meetings, board meetings, all these debates, and we've had
Have
nobody
things changed since 2010?
No, forget 2010. Look,
No,
we were very heavily involved in what was going on in the schools last year, and unfortunately, there's this big divide that was going on where it was parents against staff. parents against parents, the board against certain. It was just a clusterfuck. And
I
I'm
got
sure
arrested.
I saw the news. I saw the news.
Yeah, you saw what was going on. But I mean, that's another story in its own. But,
Joe's still on
you know-
house arrest.
yeah, literally.
No,
But-
not really.
He's joking. But when we would sit down with certain board members and certain administrators and certain superintendents, and we would ask them, whatever happened to auto mechanics, whatever happened to home ec, what the excuse was, Mr. Welsh? It was, well, we have a budgeting issue. We have a budget. Everything was budget. But every administrator had an assistant who had an assistant who had an assistant. It's like, why can't we do some sort of audit and understand that, all right, where are we spending all this money? Where can we take money out of this and put it into this? Take money out of that and put it into this. But when you would ask those questions, it's more complicated than you think it is.
You wouldn't understand.
You wouldn't understand. You'll remember this better than any of us will. And we said it off the air as well. Board members used to be uncles, aunts, moms, grandmas, sisters, brothers who would volunteer to help the schools thrive. Unfortunately, and again, I don't want to get into politics too much about this. And if you don't want to talk about it, Mr. Welsh, by all means, you could shy away from it. Why is it that the school boards have become more politicized? Why is it that the individuals sitting at these seats have political drive rather than helping children? Why is it that emails are ignored? I mean, there's so many why. But the people that ask why are the ones that are shut down.
Well, I'm not sure I would agree with you that it's that broad. I realize that there were some terrible and ugly moments outside of the district office, and I was aware of a lot of that happening, and people were keeping me appraised of it. I think the whole, you look at the last 30 years, the last 15 years, you look at our politics in this country, there are identity politics. Our country is going through a divorce right now. I hope we're the children. I hope we can survive, and I hope our country can come through this. That has impacted schools also, because quintessentially a trustee or a board member is the only elected office whose sole advocacy is children, students.
Yes.
Right. But you are right. It is politics. They are members of they have a party. They are going to be sponsored by they're looking for the sponsorship of a teacher union. They're looking to see if they get the endorsement of the fire department, of the police department. And usually those two endorsements are not necessarily the same as the teachers union endorsement, as we well know. But from my experiences, and even seeing as a consultant and hearing how administrators talk on schools, board members are people call board members. They're politicians. They're going to get elected. People call them up on the phone. People email them. I heard this is going on. What is happening here? What is happening here? And those board members will then report that back to the chief executive officer of the district, who's the superintendent. And and then he'll want to know what's happening. Yes, they are political animals. And, but I think that's based on what I think has happened in the last, 20, 30 years. But I also know from my own experience, and including people that I see today in my work, and I'm not an employee, I'm an independent contractor, that there are board members that care deeply about kids and programs in school and deeply support school administrators and the district. I mean, I'm not just telling you that just to be contrary. I've seen this, and I know that happens. I know that happens. But these other issues that are out there that are just the hot button issues of today, we've lost the art of communication. And when you said you were spoken to like that, who wants to be patronized like that and come away with more distrust? There should be an answer to that. Besides, it's complicated. There has to be an answer, because parents have rights and they should have those answers, and you want the best for your kids.
See, when I'm very involved in my daughter's school, I'm actually part of the school site council, which is involved in a lot of the financials that go on in the school. And when you see the budgeting as far as what the school uses some of the funds for, I was shocked. Like, one of the things was, the Sylvan Learning Center. It's a tutoring center. But, when you ask the administration and you ask the staff, how are we monitoring, how kids are attending these tutoring centers, there was no answer for it. I'm like, why don't we cut it out of the budget? Why don't we give it back to our teachers? I mean, and I asked some of the teachers who were part of the council as well. I said, would you be willing to stay after school for a couple of hours, have the kids be tutored by a teacher, have it stay on campus, have that money circulate back into our school? Everybody was ecstatic about it. I think that's where the loss of communication is there's not enough parents being involved in their children's school, and they think of school as a babysitting service where you drop your kids off, you go to work, and then you pick them up at 3:00. But when you actually get involved, and teachers, principals, administrators, parents, they all communicate with each other, I think you can be a phenomenal, well-tuned, oiled machine that can help all the kids thrive. Because our CASP scores were horrendous last year. And I think with parents, teacher, administration involvement all together, I think we can do much better. And I think that's where the loss is communication all around.
Now, I'm not going to sound like I'm giving you patronizing you or giving you a superficial comment, but that type of attitude, you must be extremely welcomed and glad that school and your school community welcomes you, and to be a part of that is the attitude that should be pervasive, is for parents to be involved and to be able to look, like you said, you're on site council, you can see the budget. You can see the budget of a school district that might be $100 million, and 85% of it is staff, all staff.
Yeah, I saw that.
No, I mean,
it has to
out
be.
of 100 million, that's just an example, or even more than that. And it's staff. And so then you see how the other breakdowns go. But yes, parents got to be involved, have to have answers. I always welcome that.
Yeah. Joe, do we have any questions from?
We got a ton of questions. And
by the way,
lots
we see a lot. Look, if you're on YouTube and you're commenting, we see your comments. If you're on X and Facebook and Kick commenting, we see everything on the screen. It's just it's boom, 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 one after the other. There's a lot going on. Mr. Welsh, you have a bunch of notes with you.
You got a bunch of questions apparently.
No, kids. I mean, kids. I'm sorry, I'm calling you kids. They just reminded me of some of these incidents, and I mean, I if you want, I could tell you a few war stories or some humorous stories.
Please.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I told you that, and it sounds like I'm pimping this, doesn't it? But one of these days I'll get to finish this book I'm writing, and it's about my experiences as a public high school administrator in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. It's not a research book. It's recollections. It's reminiscences. It's the joys. It's the tragedies. It's the things we talked about. And it's from my perspective. And the mentors, the triumphs, the interactions, the students, the kids, the parents, the cultures, the issues, all of those things. And of course, it has various chapters. And I've decided that the name of the book is going to be, just imagine you walking by a bookstore. It's going to be called, you're walking by, do they have bookstores anymore? Okay, Barnes and Noble or whatever. Yeah, or Amazon. And there's the book. Mr. Welsh sucks donkey dicks on New Year's Eve. That's going to be the name of the book. Okay, that's the title. Mr. Welsh sucks donkey dicks on New Year's Eve. Now,
can that even be put on a shelf?
Let me tell you where it came from. So everybody wanted the Hoover marquee on Glenwood Road, the marquee out in front of school.
Yes.
The purple marquee.
Yes.
Okay, I don't think they even have it anymore. And Glendale High's got one on Broadway and Verdugo. It's CV and Clark. Everybody's got one. Okay.
By the way, the marquee is that giant billboard looking kind of thing, right?
Yes, and it has all these things on it. Hoover High School, football game tonight, water polo match here, join this club and all of this stuff. So a kid compromised it. And so compromised it and put all this crap up there. So my secretary calls me and says, Mrs. So-and-so is out in front of school. It's about 3:30, 3:45. Oh, and Mrs. So-and-so was a very, very involved and let me just say high maintenance parent, always catching things and kept us on our toes. So I go out there. Yes. Look at this. Hoover High School sucks. Don't buy an ASB card. It's a ripoff. Why would you join our football team? We haven't had a winning season since the Reagan administration.
Oh
Why is there a Latin club? I mean, do you think you're Julius Caesar? Why is it our test scores are horrible? All the way down the line,
man.
the whole thing. And I'm standing here. And then the coup de grace was the last one. And it said, and Mr. Welsh sucks donkey dicks on New Year's Eve. So I told my AP, yeah, just shut it off. And I said, I'm terribly sorry, Mrs. So-and-so. This is horrible. I'm fully responsible. I'm calling superintendent. Please do. I'm walking into the office and I'm, called my soup right away and told him, I'll explain to you later. We had a little compromise, but you're going to get a call. I'll explain to you later. And so we were talking about it as a team and how did this breakdown occur and cybersecurity and all of this stuff. and they looked at me like going, you want to say something else? And I said, well, after thousands of dollars to have this stupid marquee, and of course the technology is different today. I mean, but still the kid compromised it. I said, this goddamn thing has been running since 6:30 in the morning till 3:45, and one freaking person read it. Nobody reads the thing. Everybody, I gotta have the thing. I gotta have the club up. I gotta have the score of the game. I said, nobody reads it. It goes on all day. And I said, that's the funny part. And the other thing was, what do you want us to do with the kid? And I said, the kid, I mean, he's like a surrealist, like Federico Garcia Lorca, a surrealist. I said, not only did I perform an abominable, perverted act with some poor farm animal, some poor little Hoover burro walking across the campus. Not only did I do that, I did it on New Year's Eve. I mean, the guy's a poet. I mean, how can I, it just got around school and I, kind of gave him an alternative thing. We still laugh about it today. I wouldn't name him, but somebody kept telling me, be sure I tell that story. So if I ever finish that book and you see that title, now you know what it is.
Would the publishers allow it though?
I would hope so. I mean, they have other stuff. I mean, you see crazy stuff that's written. I mean, I would think that it would kind of be, engaging, that somebody would kind of go,
look at it this way. He's right. You walk across Barnes and Nobles and you see a title that says, Mr. Welsh sucks donkey dick on New Year's Eve, and you make the dick not the actual physical dick, but the writing of DICK like bold. That's what's going to capture the eye. And then,
no, it's a classic. I mean, that is a classic.
So it's a classic nonfiction section.
But it's a classic Hoover. I mean, it's a classic kid prank that you have to laugh about. I mean, I'm dying out there standing in the street with this parent. But the funny part was, besides what I supposedly did, was that it ran all day. Only one person saw it.
The graphics the graphics or the artwork of the cover could be the marquee, like the marquee. So it's digital writing.
Yeah, you could kind of pose. You could be like a silhouette in it for it, Armin. I mean,
am I the donkey?
The other one. You want to hear this airplane thing? I don't want, huh?
Please.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, of course.
It's my last BGD. Beat Glendale Day, right? Which had many different forms and variations over the years in terms of kids being involved in it. Some were whatever, but most of the kids got into the spirit, Beat Glendale Day, the BGD thing, and the rally and the assembly. Okay, so we're at the assembly. This is my last year, 2010. And kids are in the auditorium. The kids that wanted to be there was voluntarily, but it was a good crowd. And the drums are beating and the competition of the classes and people are screaming. Am I boring you? You're yawning at me.
I didn't yawn.
Yeah, you yawn. You tried to cover it up. Anyway, Mr. K,
You're in trouble, mister.
Nara Kashishan, in the din of the drums and people, cheering and screaming and all this kind of stuff. He comes running up to me and he goes, hey, guess what? somebody flew an airplane over Glendale High and dropped all these leaflets. Glendale High sucks and beat Glendale and stuff like this. Okay, how many crazy things do you hear overnight at BGD and the things that are going on, and the 10 chickens that were dropped off at Glendale High, but we're numbered 10, but you only put 3. I mean, all these kinds of things. So what does Mr. Welsh, the principal, do? Hey guys, guess what? Shh, guess what? Somebody flew a plane over Glendale High and dropped these leaflets that said Glendale High sucks and Hoover's going to win tonight. Okay, that was it. Okay. Well, somebody actually did fly a plane who was a Hoover student and had a pilot license over Glendale High, printed thousands
And dropped it.
of leaflets, flew below civil aeronautical violations post 9/11, even though it's 2010, frightening people because it was that low. And did he aim it perfectly because he wanted it all over Glendale High, but with the wind, it's all over that area and that part of the town.
It's in South Glendale.
Oh, and the police respond, federal agencies responded, and I'm still having fun at BGD and going to the game. And so the superintendent calls me and says, did you say at an assembly that you knew of a kid that flew an airplane? And suddenly I'm thinking, wait, why would he? Yeah, I did. And he says, what the hell? Did you know this happened? This leaflet flew all over the place. They're all over the place. There was a plane. It flew maybe 100 feet, 150 feet off the ground. And then the kid, he was chased by helicopters. He hightailed it back to Burbank and landed. And I'm not going to say his name. He was a pilot.
Shit.
No kidding. And
That's
so
awesome.
I'm trying to explain that, well, yeah, I said it, but I said, boss, I just thought this was like these crazy things. I just thought it was bullshit. Yeah, I did say it. Well, I want to know the name. So superintendent was Mike Escalante. And so I said, come on, Mike,
Lighten up a little bit.
Can we let the police and the investigative agencies handle this? I mean, if I get called in and I have to, be involved in a legal situation or deposition or something to where I would commit perjury, I will do what I need to do for the sake of the school and the district and my life or something. But it just somehow it managed to evaporate to where they couldn't find the kid, and I just said I didn't want to be involved in it. But if it gets to a further investigation, I will investigate too and try to find out the name. And luckily it just ended like that. But
And the kid
That's
was
to the
hired
kid.
by the Air Force.
well, he's probably having a great job of flying a career as a pilot now. But that was the airplane, and that has to be one of the classic BGD pranks of all time. And the fact that I just completely announced it and everybody cheered. I just thought it was another one of these crazy things that happened.
I didn't even remember that. I wasn't part of the school at the time, but the chicken one I remember. The chicken one where the chickens were numbered 1 through. There were supposedly 10 chickens.
Yeah.
But they basically numbered. They went like 1, 2, 3, 4. They skipped the number, and then it was all the way to 10. So they found 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and they were out there looking for the missing chicken, but there was none.
Live chicken?
Yeah, they were sprayed.
But they numbered them. And
Ah.
therefore they thought they kept looking for, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Whatever it
and
was.
and they didn't exist.
During my time, we just had that. We would bring in an old piece of crap car painted red and black, and then we'd get to beat it up with baseball bats.
Well, we did that until one schmuck got hurt.
It's always one schmuck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
ruins it for everybody.
It was. I don't remember who it was. The moron got hurt. He hit the bat. It ricocheted back, smacked him. He fell down. There was this whole chaos behind it. I think the parents got involved. They came in.
Yeah.
How could you bring in a vehicle and have the? It's like, bro, there's no glass. Like the lights aren't there. The windshield isn't there. It's just the metal body.
Well, when he smashed it, he had
It ricocheted back. Yeah,
It hit him.
so it hit him. So it's like, you turn around, you can tell your kid, well, teach your boy how to swing a bat properly, but That was
Back then you could do that though.
well, that
right?
was the end of it. We never were able to beat the red car again.
You know, not to digress, you're the host, but when you talked about the erosion of authority and you know, of discipline and stuff like this, add to that calculation the devastating impact that COVID has had on public schools, on all schools. Just devastating, in my opinion, in learning loss and in adding to student apathy and in general, that still schools have not recovered. COVID had a devastating impact on instruction in schools and student attentiveness and engagement. Schools are still trying to recover from that.
Well, schools could,
in my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. It had a tremendous impact on learning. Absolutely. But that all could have been avoided if schools were to have reopened.
This guy needs a drink.
well, we'll tell you. We'll tell you why Mr. Welsh doesn't want to drink later.
Yeah, sure.
But
That's another one.
That could have all been avoided if schools were reopened much sooner.
They even named the drink Old Fashioned. They think you should have an old
Jack
Well,
Daniels.
do you want to talk about that before we get into COVID?
Okay, all right.
Tell us why you're not drinking, Mr. Welsh.
Okay, now this is going to make you feel uncomfortable, but you know, you're the edgy show. Okay, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober since 1987 of March.
Wow. that's
Okay, okay,
Since when?
1987. Okay, now when you say that to people, just like what your gesture were doing, it almost, you know, you could either make you uncomfortable, and there's a purpose to it because it has to do with school,
Hats off to you, Mr. Welsh.
or you were about to be gracious and say that. Okay, so what that goes back to, and of course you said, hey, you want to hang around for a drink? Well, imagine on my text message back to you, I went, no, I'm sorry, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I mean, buzzkill, right? So I'm not going to do that. Okay, and I'm not a teetotaler. I was a drunk, and I had to confront that and get sober. Okay, so the funny part of it was, do you remember Red Ribbon Week at school, the drug awareness?
Of
Yes,
course.
yeah.
The tie, you know,
Dare and all that stuff.
So on principle, and it's Red Ribbon Week, and they have an assembly, drug awareness, and all of this. Okay, it had its purpose for elementary school kids. Okay, high school kids, oh Jesus, whatever, right? Okay, high school kids are sophisticated, so there's this program, and it's going on, and now the kid, ASP kids, goes, and you could just see from the attentiveness of the crowd, the kid goes, and now a few words from Mr. Welsh. So I go up there, and of course, it was very important for the board and the district. You have Red Ribbon Week drug awareness, and I'm shouldn't be laughing at, and that's pre-opioid epidemic and pre-fentanyl. Okay,
Yes.
so I go up to speak, and now Mr. Welsh would like to say a few words. And suddenly, in the back of the auditorium, this is fucking bullshit, Welsh. And so there's this gigantic, like all around, in this deadly silence. And so I'm standing there, and there's bosses down there and board members, you know, who are attending, and I start to break. I start to laugh, and it starts to go, and I can't control my laughter. I'm like I'm talking right now. People can tell, and I have to turn away. I'm laughing, and it's terrible. So kids start laughing, and it was like this really awkward, weird thing. So I said, "Okay, stop." And I'm trying to control myself, and I said, "Okay, thank you, whoever said that. You're giving me a teaching moment. I'm accountable for my actions, and I'll explain my laughter. And you're going to be accountable for your actions for screaming that out. We're both accountable." And I said, "Look, I understand, and you are perhaps a minority, that Red Ribbon Week and the way this assembly, people really worked hard at it. It's great for little kids, but this is maybe not getting your engagement as a high school student." So I said, let me start with something. Do you know this? Kids are listening. I said, your principal's a drunk. Ooh. I said, the term of it now is, I had a drinking problem. Oh, that's another euphemism. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for so many years. Now, kids immediately start to applaud. Stop. Thank you. That's not my point. It's not about me. My point is, what if there is some connection about drug awareness and addiction and getting those first steps? I don't know. What if when I first started to have a drink and beer and slamming beers and doing that stuff, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to become an alcoholic. No, I developed that pattern. And I said, and I have wreckage in my personal life to know the pains. Either I thought I was going to be the funniest guy in the world when I was drinking and drunk. I was going to be the new Robin Williams or somebody, or else I became a spiteful, hurtful person saying awful things to people I love. So I got sober, but I said, I'm not trying to say that you have a drink, you have a joint, you do this, you do that, and you're going to have that. But you're high school students, you're sophisticated. You should be aware of what's out there. You should be aware of choices and judgment and understand that there are consequences for that. And there are patterns that can evolve based on your genetics and other social reasons. And I just said, hey, I'll take a chance. And I hope I don't embarrass anybody. Would any of you be willing to raise your hand and just indicate if you are aware of a friend, a pal, maybe a family member, somebody else that has any form of addiction? Tons of hands went up. And I said, again, am I making a stretch between Red Ribbon Week and drug awareness? And if you were to be involved in choosing to do that and you're going to become an addict? No, it all depends upon many factors and what can happen. But I said it's worth exploring and talking about. And the reaction was extremely positive. I mean, really positive, because it led to other things in conversations. And even in some kids who came up to me and said, I know somebody, can you get somebody some help? And in fact, there's a lot of programs like that today. They're very sophisticated that are dealing with these issues for kids on campus, as you well know. So when you go back to the genesis of why about the drinking, I didn't want to give it a buzzkill for you. No. But that's. But I thank that kid.
For how long are you labeled a recovering alcoholic? You've been sober for 37 years. Does it ever turn into I just don't drink, or you're always?
I will always think of myself, and I'm around drinking and parties all the time. I'm around it every single day. Right now, I'm around it, whether we do something afterwards or family parties. I love bars. I love it. I just know that I'm an alcoholic.
You were.
I am, and
you are.
Well, I don't drink anymore, but always I couldn't have one drink. What does one drink? What does one beer? What does one glass of wine do for me? Nothing. I'd have to have 20 and then take on the British Army or think I was the funniest guy in the world. See, I'll always think of I have to think of myself that is still an issue within me. And even though I have conquered it quite a bit for 37 years, whatever that is, and have been a model for my kids and other people in my life and family and stuff like that. And my career took a magical turn after getting stultifying there for a while to go upwards, and good things happen in my personal life and all of that. I will always think of myself that within my genetics, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm just not going to drink. And I know what'll happen to me if I do.
And mind you, I knew this because, people talk, and everybody knew about this during the Hoover days.
Being Irish didn't give it away whatsoever.
The Catholic Irishman didn't give it away.
Of course,
but
genetics.
You know what it is? I guess it's a cultural thing. Even though I knew you're gonna say, thank you, no, I don't drink anymore. I guess it's kind of the Armenian nature to always offer your guest, would you like something to drink? Even though I know you're gonna say no.
Yeah, of course.
But then there's some people saying how some of these commenters, we know their age. They went to school in the 2000s, saying that
they didn't know.
Not that they didn't know that you did drink. Were there any relapses, or it's just?
No, when I got sober on March 13th, 1987, after an absolutely horrible night that I blacked out and don't remember, and thank God I never hurt or killed anyone. And my wife was called by some kind soul who found me drunk at some bar someplace, and I was having a lot of fun, and just said, "Hey, here's this nice guy, come pick him up." I mean, that it was that bad. And again, I'd either have great moments and having fun and doing all my fun stuff and all of that, or thinking I was, or I'd have some terrible moments of not understanding why I'm saying awful things and hurting people I love.
Not only that, saying is one thing, but possibly doing something where you could have possibly hurt yourself.
Oh, sure, and
somebody.
it led to the demise of major demise of my first marriage, and I had to accept that. And so, no, I did not. I have not had a relapse, and I did work the AA program, and I'm totally in support of anybody who is in any form of support programs for alcohol or with any kind of drug addiction. And good Lord, if I had the money for cocaine in the 80s, you guys wouldn't be talking to me, and no, you wouldn't. And
so then you have an addictive personality, or do you?
Oh,
think
sure.
Because you said,
oh, sure. If you had some
genetically-
cookies here, you wouldn't see me eat one cookie. I'd have 25, 30 cookies. It's impulsive, and it's also genetics. Alcoholism was in my family. I mean, and yes, you could talk about the Irish culture, and yes, when you think of the Irish culture and how it was oppressed, by the British, just as what the Turks did. What the Turks did.
Yeah.
What could the Irish do when they were oppressed and being brutalized and murdered?
Same as what the
Well, they
Armenians
could
do,
write
drink.
and be poets and do great things that you see throughout literature, and they could fight, and they could also drink. And so there is cultural genetics there too, and there had been alcoholism in my family before, and not everybody in my family picked it up, but boy, I sure did.
Have there ever been times where, again, this is going back, I don't want to put a burden on Hoover's name, but students possibly being found with alcohol and being caught, and you kind of speaking to them and venting to them, kind of telling them like, look, this is a path that I went through. I don't want you to go through the same path. Because again, this goes back to the communication with you. As far as with the assembly and you opening up to an entire audience and your bosses sitting there,
Who were not too excited I did that, by the way. But
yeah, who gives a
but-
shit about
yeah.
that? It's in the past, but hey, shit, it takes balls to
Well,
do
no,
that.
but yeah.
Have there ever been incidents where students have been caught and you've kind of opened up to them and vented to them about it?
It depended upon the student and the incident. If they were under the influence at school, for whatever it was, kids would be suspended, but then they would, be given an opportunity for a program and to give them some help. And sometimes it wasn't because of addiction. It was just kids doing stupid things. So, but there were kids that I recall that I knew that had some issues with these things and with drugs and with more serious drugs. And when this began to happen, it was ridiculous in terms of, I mean, everybody would know this. Suspension isn't doing this. Is just stupid to have a suspension. This young person needs
More help.
needs involvement and help and stuff like this. And we got to get him that. And then depending upon what relationship I'd have with the kid, really depending upon that, it wouldn't just work just to say it, because then it would look like I'm trying to say something just to say that. But if I had for whatever reason
A real connection.
a deeper, and I'd say, hey, by the way, I was at the bottom of the pits too.
Yeah.
And maybe I would share that. It would just depend upon it.
We're talking about drugs and alcohol right now, but let me ask you this. In 2006, 2007, and 2008, I mean, Glendale went through a very scary moment where there was a very large heroin and opioid scares. Did Hoover go through that as well? Because I wasn't aware of it until 2012, where I ran into some old friends, and some of them told me, hey, did you hear, Bob was in rehab? Hey, did you hear Tom was in rehab? I'm like, for what? And they were like, dude, Glendale and Hoover went through this big heroin scare in 2006, 7, and 8. I'm like, what? Did that ever occur at Hoover High School at all, where there was that big kind of opioid and heroin scare that went around?
Rumors of it and people talking about it that I recall, but not to like, something you'd see on a show where kids are going around shooting themselves up and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there was a student that was involved and was in serious addictive trouble that was involving heroin, and which is like a pretty big jump from having a beer on snack and pot. And so I think that led to kind of like big scares or urban legends about other things happening. But there was a young person that was seriously involved.
And again, this is something where I found out about it much later. And did you know about that?
No.
Joe, did you?
No, I didn't know about that.
That's and again, people in the comments, let me know if you guys knew about it as well.
But
I had no idea until in the late 2010s, where Glendale and Hoover and Glendale High and CV and a lot of these schools went through a heroin scare. It
might have been a brief moment because the drug aspect in Glendale, I don't know, it wasn't as bad in Glendale schools, from what I remember anyway. But there is a topic that's like, I saw it several times and I wanted to say there was something about a fire at the school.
Fire?
Yes, there was a lab fire at one point, and there were some other fires, and someone was asking like, "What about a fire or whatever?" So I want to see. Do you know anything
Chemistry
about
lab?
Yeah, remember the chemistry lab?
Oh, there was. I forget the year, but I shouldn't. But there was a devastating arson fire at the school.
Oh, arson!
Oh, it was major fire, and it severely impacted the school for months, and it was really an incredible amount of hard work and ingenuity to navigate and maneuver the school, to have classes on different sides of the schools and doubling up, and to do that while the areas that were burned massively structurally in the school were impacted, and of course the scare and concern, we should shut down school forever, asbestos, the smoke, the inhalation, everything that you would hear that would occur of a fire, and then to try to keep and having a school going. There was a major arson fire.
Was this a new building, the new science building, or was it the older building?
What you would consider to be the old traditional
They're saying it was
building.
1995.
Yeah,
I was there in 95.
Yeah, we were there, but I believe we were like what, freshmen or sophomores?
No, it was
end of 15. We were sophomores already.
Driving up to the school and then getting all the calls in the middle of the night and the whole thing about it. It was a massive fire, and it disrupted school for months too.
Yeah, they caught the person who did it. It was an arson fire. Yeah.
His name was an arson, was it?
It was Armin and Arson.
Armin and Arson. Because when we were at Hoover, the new science building was built, which is basically where I guess the staff parking lot is, right next to School Street off of Glenwood.
I have another one.
Were you guys there? Was that building there when you guys were there?
Building?
Which building?
I guess they called
the science building.
They
Yes,
called it the science building because it was newer, and when we were there, it was
there's a parking lot right under it.
Right under it was a parking lot. What year was that built, Mr. Walsh?
Which bit?
The one where the parking lot was underneath, and then
the new building would be I want to say 2001, 2. Is that about that time? Maybe 99, 2000. Or am I dating myself?
We considered it the new science building when we were there, and that's where Mr. Schneider's and Mr. Shagulian's class were there.
What year were you again?
2000. I was graduate of 2004, but I attended 2000.
So I think it was right around 2000.
That is what it was.
Yeah, it was there. Also, one more thing, and I got another one here. Anyone remember the pepper spray incident? Here we go. Wait a minute. I'm gonna post it. Yeah, hold on. Where it says
they pepper sprayed
inside
the ventilation system.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Jeez, are you serious?
Oh yeah, and it impacted the whole first floor in the school and major. You know, it was like one of these things that happened at Hoover High School. It's a bad news day. We weren't bombing Baghdad or something, and now we have a pepper spray, and the entire media circus of everything comes down upon it. And so people with pepper spray are impacted. And you had people getting out in the front of the school. You had all paramedics, people that are impacted by it, lying down on the grass, media coming over, and of course others getting caught up with it in terms of histrionics and wanting the school to be closed down and all of this type of thing. But yeah, there was a major incident where somebody set that off, and it I don't necessarily know what, I'm sure it's quite possible, you know, that it kind of gone through the ventilation, but it sure hit a lot of the first floor and impacted other people. We had to.
Well, yeah, I'm sure the ducting system is all connected to each other, and they're all running off of chillers and boilers, and it's not one condensate unit running.
Archaic system, yeah.
Yeah, it's
now we're going to give these current students some ideas.
During there was one instance during BGD. I think they lit the posters on fire. If you remember that, once the fire department was called and everything.
What year was this?
This is all. This
has to be 90s, bro.
I don't remember.
It's all.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah. I remember that
Bro,
one.
the worst pranks.
Well, you know, but
we had
wait
with
a
the
minute.
chickens.
But there might have been. Believe it or not, I don't remember a lot of these. Is there might have been something there, that some truth to that, because afterwards, when kids with posters, it had to be. You had to buy this expensive fireproof stuff that nobody could, you know, go by and just light a match and just, you know, get the thing on fire. So I think there's some truth to that, but I just don't recall exactly what.
One story I do remember from Hoover, and I think I've shared this on the podcast before as well. It was summer school, and then we had a bunch of teachers from like Clark and from Glendale High, from Clark, from CV that were kind of, I guess they were rotating for summer school, so they were teaching different classes, and I remember it was a biology class I was taking, and there was this, we were acting up with a bunch of the students, and the teacher kicked me out of the classroom. He was like, you know what, go stand outside. And he was a Clark teacher. I was like, go stand outside. He goes, yeah, go stand outside. You're on timeout. Okay. So I go, and this is on the 3rd floor facing the small quad.
Okay.
And I'm standing outside, and all of a sudden
the lower.
Yeah.
What would be called the lower quad.
The lower quad.
And
but
you know that
you're
doesn't,
on the 3rd floor.
Right. And that doesn't exist anymore. You know that.
Okay,
now.
we'll get into that because I haven't been on campus for years. But so I'm standing outside, and all of a sudden this young girl gets kicked out of class as well. And she was new to Hoover. And I was like, oh, what happened? She goes, oh, I was talking to my friend. I got kicked out. I'm like, what's up with this teacher? Why is he kicking everybody out? She goes, I don't know. He's just being a pain in the ass. And, you know, she just walks out, and she sits on the rail facing the quad, the small quad. And she starts teetering back and forth. And I'm looking at her teetering back and forth. I go, listen, you got to stop doing what you're doing right now. And she goes, why? What's wrong? I'm like, look, I know your feet are hooked to the rail, but if you fall over off the 3rd floor and you drop down, I got to go back inside and tell the teacher that the girl just jumped off the 3rd floor. What's the likelihood he's gonna believe?
That was your concern.
What's the likelihood that he's gonna believe that you jumped and I didn't push you off? And then she goes, well, what do you mean? Why would you push me off? I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you were to fall, I got to go back inside and tell the teacher that. And this guy's a new teacher here, and Hoover doesn't have the greatest reputation in the world. And again, not to go into racial things, but you're Asian, I'm Armenian. Armenians don't have the greatest reputation.
Armenians getting blamed for it.
I'm going to get blamed for it. So
as well, you should, of course.
There you go. there you go. But it's just there's so
what
many.
Happened?
Nothing. No. Thank God I'd be on the news.
He's like,
oh, that's what you were worried about. Like,
I gotta waste 3 minutes of my time. Go call one of the teachers now, just because you decided to. You know.
Well, no. If she look, imagine her teetering back and forth.
I'm imagining that.
And then imagine
that's what she meant.
Yeah.
That's teetering.
So that inner quad, right?
Yes. So
Okay,
what happened with
and that
interquad?
was between in what would be called the old building, and it was a small area down below, correct? And the only way to get to what would be called the upper quad was to go up through the stairs there.
Correct.
Okay, 2008, all of that was demolished, and now nobody know, like students had texted me and messaged me about talk about the old quad and the new quad. The quad that students know at Hoover High School from 2008 on is that wall below, when you would be in the inner quad walking down below, that was destroyed underneath. And the quad at Hoover High School, when you're in that so-called inner quad, it opens up quite majestically into a bunch of steps. That is now the quad at Hoover High School. There's no upper quad and lower quad. It is joined together, and it's really pretty. It's really cute. And when kids would see this new quad, what is this? Because you remember the upper quad and everything happening. Now, I wish I had some pictures to show you. It's quite. I don't know. Maybe you guys can look it up and just look for Hoover Quad right now. But where you would be in the inner quad, okay, and you're facing north, that wall was demolished. So that opens up. So you're in that inner quad. You could walk through there now. It's wide open. You can walk through there and go on these series of ascending steps, and there's plants and stuff like that. So the kids at Hoover High School from 2008 on, that is their quad. They don't know of any lower quad and upper quad. And one of the reasons for that, with a lot of money, was that I'm sure some of you may scoff at it, was that based upon our prior taping conversation, is the idea was to have a more unified Hoover High School quad, that kids would be, that it would be opened up. There wouldn't be these kids who would just hang here and only be the so-called socias and kids who would hang there. It would be this idea of a unified quad. It's quite good looking.
Okay, I'm trying to. Okay, and I haven't seen. Have you seen the quad?
I haven't.
Wait,
No, but there's a.
What's the comment? What's the comment?
You know what?
You're being me at the assembly.
No, because as DJ Sako was saying this, I remember he's like, did Hoover get rid of the cum trees?
Oh my god!
Who is that? Is that DJ Sako?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god.
I'm he knows me. I know you.
He's not lying though.
No.
We need
We
an
can bring-
explanation.
we can- Hey, you can bring
DJ
DJ on to explain that one. I ain't touching that one.
Okay, so okay, so it's okay. All right, so we're going into a time machine. We're going back to 2004 right now, or 2003, 2002, even to your year. So when the quad that was there, where the cafeteria was, you had the middle green grass area, and then you had like these little planters that were about maybe 2 feet off the ground, and then these planters had these trees planted in between them, and there, in where we would hang out, there was 3 there, and there was one right in front of the cafeterias, the cafeteria windows, and then there was 3 more on the other side behind us. Okay, those trees would bloom every spring, and they would have these white flowers on them, and for some apparent reason,
Yes.
those trees would let out a very distinct odor, and it literally
Smell like that.
Hold on, wait a minute. I'm not gonna let that one go. This is recorded. It's live.
oh jeez, it would smell.
You know what's funny?
But you guys, you haven't changed too much.
Why would
But I'm reading a comment here from Ani B, and I guess that's Levick about what the quad is there. But I like the way I like the way she just said that. It was basically an integrated quad. It moved up and it broke down those walls and barriers. I like the way that she expressed that. And whoever I can't read that from here. Is it Levick or something like that?
You remember Levick?
Talked about.
He was a volleyball coach.
Oh, okay.
Abramian.
Okay. All right. Hey, it was also talking about was also a safety idea because you'd have you're downstairs. There'd be an incident on the upper quad.
You got to run down.
You're
the
running.
stairs.
You're running up the stairs. Now it's an expansive
Or if
thing.
the
So
girl
those are good points.
So if the girl were to fall
know
down,
what?
from
Yeah. But you were a hero. You saved the Korean student.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
did.
I mean,
It was all because of the country. You know what's funny is in 2000, I think it was around 2004, between 2004, 3, for about 2-3 years, I had an office on Cahuenga,
yeah, DJ.
and the office building had that same tree.
the country.
Yeah,
How's that one?
it's still there, Cahuenga. Guys, if you don't know what tree this is,
I just want to know what that tree is actually called.
go to the corner of Riverside and Cahuenga.
Smell it.
There's a restaurant right next to the gas station. There's a 2-story building. There's a restaurant, Heirloom, and that tree is there. Springtime, go, you'll smell it. You'll see exactly what we're referring to.
Everybody just labeled that tree as the cum tree.
Imagine people show up there springtime. What do you guys do? We're looking for the cum tree. Oh, you're not here for breakfast? No, we're
We're here to find the cum tree. But okay,
As I said earlier, you guys are the #1 rated podcast. I mean,
In
you guys are
91203.
edgy. You guys are edgy.
91203. Because
listen,
Yeah,
as
outside.
Sako said, he's like, Arnold, stop being so PG. So I'm just trying to be as PG as possible with that country. But so here's what I haven't seen the new campus. I haven't seen the new quad. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how, because look, where the third floor was, there were these pillars, right, which faced the actual quad. You're telling me that where those pillars are, and there's another level below that, all that has been demoed?
The quad is if you're in the what you can call the lower quad, and you're looking north toward that building or the rest of the floors, and looking north toward Olmsted or the back of the school, all of that is still the building, but all of that is opened up to where it expands. It's integrated, as Ani said there, and it all goes up into this lovely steps and stuff. There's an opening.
So
This
where
quad is getting a lot of attention.
well,
huh?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around, because
Go-
look at I
go-
haven't.
Just go take a field
get a
trip there.
picture. Get
I
a picture
should,
on there.
bro.
The Hoover Quad in
I
Glendale.
should.
There's some. It's
Because
Yeah,
no,
take a
because
tour.
structurally, I just can't. I can't visualize it, because there was lockers there.
Yeah, they removed
Gone.
all that. They
gone.
just-
All of that gone. That wall is gone. It was opened up. There's still the building, and it's opened up. So it's an expansive opening quad.
He's not in real estate. He doesn't understand.
No.
If
And
you-
it's not a flat, and it's the upper part is not a flat cut. It's a series of steps and platforms and stuff like that. It's very pretty.
they're building an ADU now, in case you were wondering.
Oh, it's a Sako actually texted it to me. Hold on.
You texted you a picture of the quad?
Yeah, there you go.
Let me see. I'm curious.
You might not be able to see the opening of it.
No, you can't see the opening. I'm trying to figure out where that is.
That was what was the flat used to be what
Well,
you call the upper
The
quad.
cafeteria was here, right? Right
Exactly.
there.
I can't see what you're saying.
Is the
Yeah, let me
cafeteria
see.
here?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's the steps, and there is underneath of what you would have been in that lower
So
quad.
where
It opens
where
up.
the administration building is and the main entrance to the school, when you walk in through those doors, and the administration building is there where your office was, right? On the first floor,
Mhm.
right? Main ground level.
Yeah.
And then you walk through the building, and then there's another door, and then you walk into the small quad. If I'm in that small quad, I'm looking out, I see the big quad open.
Mhm. Yeah.
Holy shoot.
Yeah. So the reason I brought it up was that one of the great debates was when people saw it was what you remembered between they kept calling it the new quad and the old quad. What I'm saying is that kids that have attended there since 2008 on, that is the Hoover Quad. That is what they know. They
So
don't.
you've experienced both. You've experienced
The
ours.
construction happened when I was in the last 2 years of my principalship.
So 2008 they started. In 2010 they finished.
It was completed basically the actual opening of it was completed by 2008.
He's not going to let go of the quad.
I'm sorry.
Let's
Let's
move
move
on
on.
from the
10
quad.
years after we
Sacco, stop
graduated.
texting me pictures of the quad. He's texting me.
There's a lot of questions, but you had a few more stories. Do you have any stories that you want to share again? Mr. Welsh?
Let me see here.
By the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, click the subscribe button. If you aren't following us on Facebook, click the follow button. Twitter, same thing.
On the serious piece, we were talking about this earlier. Is and laughing about cultures and similarities. I owe a lot to Armenian kids and parents, and of course, when I used to teach social studies and history, so I understood about the genocide. I knew that to be true, but I was raised in an Irish Catholic family, and of course, the idea of having fun and doing the Irish spirit and showing the fun of the Irish people and all of that good stuff. And I did the green nut mustache for 40 years straight as a teacher,
Yes.
a counselor, administrator. Okay, those were fun things. Okay, I would do it on St. Patrick's Day. Is that really Irish culture? No, but it was the idea of the green thing, and Mr. Welsh was known for that, and I used to do the St. Patrick
Yeah.
stuff. But back to the Armenian, there's a lot of similarities between Armenian culture and Irish culture, both persecuted brutally for their religions, Catholic, Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, both lands brutalized by empires, British Empire for the Irish, Turkish, okay,
Yes.
for the Armenian, caused a massive diaspora. Okay, everywhere they go in the world, Armenians have been successful, so have the Irish. British economic policies and brutalization policies in Ireland in the 1840s caused the famine, which brought the Irish to America. Where did the Irish go? They landed in New York. They go to Boston. They go to Chicago. Armenians came to the United States. Fresno, where did they go? Earthquake,
Yeah.
everything else. Soviet
LA,
Empire.
New York, we're all over the
Okay.
place. Yeah.
But Glendale,
Yeah.
the uniqueness of the Glendale School District, there is a tremendous similarities in the culture. And I remember in terms of the impact of Armenian families and kids on me was that there's, I don't know, maybe call me on this if it sounds a bit corny, but it always struck me there was this hole, this longing that the genocide is never, why isn't it recognized by these sons of bitches, Turkey? Why aren't other nations getting on board? Why hasn't the United States formally said it? Why is it that it's always the politician who comes out for the April 24th parade in Hollywood and they go to the consulate and it never happens? There was always this longing of recognition of the horrors of what those people went through that Syrian desert and the murders of all of them in the genocide and the things that are happening today. It's still going on. I know there's Israel, there's Ukraine, there's these other situations ongoing, but Artsakh is Armenia. Armenia is Artsakh. Why is that not being talked about?
It's not sexy enough on the news. That's why.
Yeah.
What do we have to offer the world and the media for them to even mention anything about the Armenians? Adolf Hitler said it in 1939.
Mm-hmm.
Who today remembers the Armenians before he committed the Holocaust? So go back to 1939. Who today remembers the Armenians? We're in 2024. We've been exterminated from our own lands, ethnically cleansed from Artsakh. And who today remembers the Armenians?
Yeah.
It's deja vu. It's not sexy enough for the media. It's unfortunate. And not to get too political into Armenian politics, but I think the cancer in the culture is in the government itself as well. That you might say that the government had a hand in whatever took place.
Are you talking about
Not only him, I'm talking about all of them. I'm talking about Pashinyan, I'm talking about Sarkisian, I'm talking about
Okay.
Kocharian, I'm talking about Tepedrosian.
They all failed us.
I'm talking about from the day Armenia was recognized as its own republic back in 92 till today. It's been the same shit show, and we were supposed to have a proper government in place with Karen Demirjan and Vazgen Sarkisian, who were in essence supposed to be a phenomenal tag team in prime minister and president, but unfortunately they were brutally executed in the parliament in 1999, and that's when the fate of Armenia was basically embedded. Again, this is my opinion.
Not just your opinion.
You're humble.
Well,
or-
when the Artsakh situation came about, I believe that was 2018-19, when Azerbaijan started to come in and mobilize and attack. What's that?
Well, in April of 2016 was
Okay.
was something where they called it the Aprilian.
Okay.
Basically, it was
Okay.
a let's throw them a bone. In April, they threw us a bone with their drone attacks, and it was quickly neutralized and stopped very quickly. How many days was Aprilian for? Was it literally like a week or something, or
I
a
don't
couple
remember
days?
exactly. Yeah.
But whatever it was. And then in 2020 is when the 45 days took place,
Right.
where we lost 2 generations, if not 3 generations of Armenian young men who were fathers, sons, and were supposed to help our culture grow. And
I remember putting a lot out on social media and with my Facebook friends and Instagram friends and stuff like that. And I found it very discouraging. I mean, I got a lot of feedback from kids saying thank you, because to your point, Arnold, it obviously wasn't sexy enough or even sexy enough for the United States government to recognize it and do more. And,
Well,
it bothers me that we have a Turkey as a NATO ally and it's being allowed to happen. And it was very discouraging that I was trying to educate, kind of other people who would, just having conversations about it. And I was driven to do this. And it goes back to the point of the impact of my years at Hoover with Armenian families. It was not an objective thing for me anymore. It's a very emotional thing because I lived this through kids feeling this.
Well,
And I'm surprised that, well, I shouldn't be surprised. Your term, the way to describe it is sad. It's tragic. It isn't sexy enough. It's not Ukraine enough. It's not Gaza enough.
See, you saw Armenians in the 80s, you saw Armenians in the 90s, you saw Armenians in the 2000s, and you grew up around the Armenian culture. And you said it yourself, the Irish and the Armenians are very relatable. It's unfortunate that, whatever took place in Artsakh and in Armenia, locally we can voice it, and we can go out into the streets with our flags and say, Turkey's committing genocide, Azerbaijan is killing Armenians. But you leave this little bubble of LA, you go to Northern California, you go to Southern California as far as San Diego, or you go, I don't know, Colorado, Idaho, Utah, Central America, and you mention an Armenian, they have no idea what an Armenian is because the media hasn't said anything about it.
Yeah.
But, a small country of Armenia isn't sexy enough. But when Ukraine gets attacked, all of a sudden, oh, look, this is an amazing time to label Putin as the dictator that he is. And it's all Russia. And Ukraine becomes the victim. America has something sexy to show the world and the media, and they blame Putin. But Aliyev and Erdogan did the same exact thing as Putin did, but nobody batted an eye.
yeah.
So
We got a lot of other comments. Sorry guys, I know it's a heavy topic, but I want to change it up a little bit if possible. And let's get to some of these
go ahead,
questions.
Mr. Producer.
Apologize. So here's a Here's one. It says, "Can you ask him about Michael Jordan practicing there in the
1982,
80s?"
right? I've read stories of Michael Jordan practicing at the
Yeah, it
Hoover
was
basketball
awesome.
gym.
I think it was 84.
were you
for
there?
for the Olympics? Yeah, yeah, it was 84.
Hoover.
Yeah. So the basketball, the basketball team was practicing at for the Olympics, was practicing at Hoover High School in the gym.
Wasn't Jordan part of the 92 Dream Team? Or
No, I don't know.
94
I'm
Dream
not
Team?
sure.
this-
92 was the dream team.
Well, don't forget. Probably 84 was when there were like the top college athletes. There wasn't like the pros in the dream team at that time. I don't think there were professional athletes in 84 that were actually part of the Olympics.
Because
But
I have
Because
to, I have to, I
I
have
don't
to
even
remember.
think he was in the NBA.
I have to remember correctly. I think Jordan was drafted in 86, if I'm not mistaken. He was 84 or 86. That's when
So
Jordan.
84.
He was
84?
Yeah.
Okay, 84.
So
when he was
he was at what, North Carolina?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't think, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the Olympic teams were the dream team professionals at that time. I
No.
think,
No.
no,
It was
I think
college
it's
teams.
college
Yeah,
teams.
yeah.
And they were practicing, and for whatever reason, they were using the Hoover gym. And so, of course, go up there and check it out. And there was just seeing him shooting baskets, and he was in the gym. It was incredible. And I remember kind of standing there, ball running around the ball, and one of the balls just kind of came to me, and I kind of shoot it back, and
So Kevin Welsh passed the ball to Michael Jordan.
Was
And-
he as good as they say?
Yeah,
Or
just
it was all bullshit.
oh, I was really good. I just took the ball in two hands and kind of bounced it to
No,
him.
no,
He-
I
he
know
got
you
it. He
would.
got it. He got it on I think on two dribbles. It was incredible.
I know you were
But
good.
but I
dude,
was just
MJ.
like, hey, and don't forget at that time, Hoover High School was a preeminent basketball powerhouse, and was a CIF contender team in the low 80s,
In the 80s.
and had one of the most phenomenal basketball players in the history of Hoover High School, Joe Hillman, national scorer, who went on to Indiana and was with Bobby Knight's championship team at Indiana in '86.
Really?
So I think there was that connection there. He wasn't on that squad, but I think there was that connection with. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bobby Knight.
Bobby Knight's that angry coach, right? The one that would throw shit around, and he was.
Yeah,
so tiny.
I think he passed away a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, and legendary. But he was also a national championship
Yeah.
coach at, I believe, Indiana, and that's where he got his. But yeah, he was they called him the general, and
Interesting.
I think that was a connection. But Hoover had some awesome basketball teams, and Kurt Kohlmeyer was the D. Kohlmeyer
remember
was the athletic,
Kohlmeyer.
and
remember
Kurt Kohlmeyer
Kohlmeyer
was the
too.
coach. There were some.
It was the dad and then the son, right?
Yeah, there was, and there's also a third son, Chris Kohlmeyer,
Mm.
who's I believe he's still teaching in the district.
I remember Mr. Kohlmeyer. I remember.
But but Hoover had. I mean, those were incredible basketball teams. They were CIF contenders, and
Has our football team ever been any good?
yes, and in fact, they were good.
Because I feel like our
Well, they're-
football. I
they're-
always feel like
they're-
our football team has always been like, it was always BGD, like beat Glendale Day, where Glendale and Hoover were 0-9, both of them. It was to see who was going to get the first win of the season
Well, I used
at
to.
the end of the season.
I used to have this, this joke that it was difficult at times because in 10 games, Hoover was everybody's homecoming team. 'Cause
There was a comment.
was homecoming game.
Van Patten was there too, right?
Oh, Jack Van
Yeah,
Patten,
yeah.
outstanding athletic director and coach. But here's one that is a terrible moment in my career as an assistant principal
Oh,
is when Hoover was 8-2, and going into the CIF playoffs in 1987. And because of my screw up on an eligibility check for a student that was eventually uncovered that he did not pass at the last grading period 4 classes of an eligibility check when that was turned in. The next day, Hoover was 0-10. And when we talked about these tragedies and the impact, it pales in comparison to this. But you are excited as a Hoover alum prior to 87. You are excited as a kid. Hoover's 8-2, pounded Glendale High. We're going into the CIF. And Mr. Welsh, who was the assistant principal, who was in charge of this. Basically, there's another story to this, but that would be weak of me to not admit that ultimately it was under my responsibility and this occurred. And Don Duncan was a very ethical principal. And when this came about and we talked about it, of course, did I just wish, hey, no one's going to find out about this and check on this? You know, did I wish that, because I knew what was going to happen, but he revealed it. And, you know, we were 8-2, and then we were 0-10. And you imagine the impact that how people felt about me and the community. How did this happen? And whose responsibility this? And I remember the news things, and I just said that this was my responsibility. It's my mistake. I regret it deeply. I accept whatever the consequences were. And I really thought that that was it for me. And it was a terrible blow, but they were 8-2 at that point. And that was and then the next minute it was 0-10. And boy, after that, did I make sure and implemented the most drastic, draconian counter checks and balances for every damn thing in the world that was possible. But it was at a different level of these tragedies. And please don't make sure I understand. I'm not comparing them. But when you just think of that alone as itself and the excitement, and by your statement of that, and the fact that it was ultimately my responsibility and lack of responsibility that this occurred, it was absolutely brutal. I mean, I was sick. I just how could I face those kids? I mean, and yeah, I didn't.
How long did you not go back to school for?
Oh, I had to show up. And I don't think I was, no, I was still drinking then. Because it was the fall of '87. So I think I drowned my sorrows in those ways that we talked about earlier. But it was painful. It was, I mean, because of my error, I impacted and hurt a lot of people, and it was brutal to have to deal with that. But when you look back, but now Hoover's had some other successful seasons, so just don't say that. But I thought I was being sarcastic. I thought it would be honest to say that I didn't walk on tornado water all the time. There were some times that that was the worst.
No, I was being sarcastic. I mean, of the 4 years I was there, I mean, we didn't have the greatest football team, but
you guys had a great golf team, no?
We did have a golf team.
You did?
We did. We actually had a golf program.
Where'd you guys?
CIF champions in.
I actually played on the golf.
Where'd you guys practice?
What year did you graduate?
2004.
CIF champions in tennis.
I remember.
Yeah.
What's his name was on that team? Jack was on that team. Hawkop was on that team.
Okay.
And he and I remember
CIF champions.
Yes, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, Lynn Santa Maria was the coach.
Yeah, where did you think I got my golf swing from?
I've never seen your golf swing.
I'll show you later.
You golf?
No.
I do. Well, not golf. I attempted. My golf is beer, cigar, scotch, and just kind of shooting shit.
We attempted to golf once about 10 years ago. My friends and I, we went to the club in the valley, Sherman Oaks or somewhere, and I guess we weren't dressed appropriately, so they didn't let us in.
Were you wearing flip flops?
No, I was wearing sweats. And
I love to torment my golf friends because, as you well know, there are golf people who are absolutely passionate. And I remind them of what George Carlin, the late comedian, said. Yeah. The late comedian said that all golf courses should be turned over to the homeless, and it should be for them.
No, what he said was he also said watching golf is like watching flies fuck. But speaking of the Irish, Robin Williams has an amazing skit about how golf was created by the Irish. You should. It's like a 4.5 minute skit.
I got to check that out.
You love it.
I loved him.
Robin Williams, George Carlin. Yeah, those were.
No, I was so sad.
It was ahead of his time.
I was so sad about that with Robin Williams. He would do his thing. He would just bring so much joy, and to think that he had such anguish that that was driving him in the other direction. When I think of that, I mean, he just brought so much joy when he would open his mouth.
One of my favorite actors. One of my favorite actors.
And I remember when we're not talking Hoover here, but Rush Limbaugh, when he went on his show about Robin Williams and the decadent and these people and the Hollywood people. And I just remember I wanted to go after the mic, the TV set after him, because, you know, in a minute of Robin Williams doing his thing would bring so much joy than Rush's vial that he was talking about. And plus you find out later that he had his own issues.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
We all digress. Don't worry, Mr. Welsh.
But I think the most important of all of them, as far as like what he predicted, or not even predicted, but the topics he talked about, was George Carlin. I mean, you listen to his comedy today, it's like he talked about exactly what we're experiencing today.
He would be canceled if you were to even mention any of his skits today.
I don't even think they could cancel him today, because
Are you kidding?
I mean, the guy, there's not a single skit that's not relevant to what we're experiencing in society and politics and everything on a global scale.
Well, does any comedian get canceled today? Well,
Not anymore.
I mean, you can say whatever you want. Well, who is it that got into the trouble about the some of the LGBTQ stuff or gender stuff?
He didn't get in trouble. Dave Chappelle mentioned.
Okay, yeah,
Dave
okay,
Chappelle,
okay.
but
Not in trouble, but I mean, there's
Dave
controversy.
Chappelle has fuck you money.
Yeah, but I think the whole cancel culture is kind of disappearing now.
It is, because people are tired of hearing about it. It's
People are
too
starting to-
repetitive.
Yeah, they realize the people canceling them are the ones that are actually the pedophiles.
Well,
so-
people are getting too soft. That's the problem. Everybody's way too soft nowadays.
Okay. Now, there's a good comment from
Which one?
DJ.
Which one?
DJ has redeemed himself.
DJ Soccer.
Ask Welsh if he would want to be a school principal or school.
Would you?
In today's environment.
Answer honestly, Mr. Welsh.
The romantic answer is, I miss the juice. I miss the interaction, especially with kids. I miss the people and the data stuff and the challenges and all of that. But it is an enormously challenging, taxing job, exponentially more difficult and challenging than it was, even with all the things, some of the things that we talked about, joys and triumphs and errors and mistakes. And there's a part like, God, I'd love to just be involved in that and see what I could do. And but of course, you know, age and you know, just those issues that are out there today that are confronting school administrators, I guess the honest answer would be no, because I see it as a consultant, what school administrators are going through. It's enormously challenging, and you know, there's no excuses. They need to be accountable. You know, all these issues that are out there that are today that are brought into the school, and their hands are tied in a lot of different areas with different issues and some of these discipline issues that we started. But no, it would be, I'd have to be honest with myself that I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd love to think of it, because I miss maybe I'm just romanticizing and thinking of these old things, and I'm thinking of myself, you know, 14 years ago or 30 years ago. But I mean, it's like talking about you know, being able to do it when you're the president of the United States, right?
It is. I think in today's society is a little bit challenging, and I could only.
That's right. The president of the United States, the 82-year-old Joe Biden, coming off the debate. We weren't going to talk about this, and the cringeworthy debate and the wokeism against Donald Trump, a 78-year-old guy whose platform is one of vengeance. And I wonder if he can tell the truth. So tonight, you just gave me the idea. This is the most critical election in our lifetime. It is. It is critical. It is a defining seminal moment in the history of the United States. And I think our country needs another white old man. And I'm going to be 76 next month, and I'm coming out for it tonight. And you know what my platform is? Anyone who goes into a public restroom in a public place and takes a selfie and shows their Pilates in this and all their hot outfits and their Botox, anybody who does that and takes these selfies in public places, in mirrors, against the mirrors, and post them. My platform, I would send them to an island off the coast of Madagascar. And these TikTok idiots who do that in public, I would also ban them to the furthest island in the world. Here I am in Walmart. Okay, I admit it. I went into Walmart about 2 weeks ago, and I'm down this one aisle looking for, adult men's diapers, for poor guy of my age. And here's this kid, 18, because she could be 16, she could be 18, 19. Here she is in the middle of this aisle in a bikini. Oh, beep, 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 doing this stupid TikTok to this music right in the middle of this aisle. I mean, it is just bizarre what has happened. That person and any person like that doing that in any public, I would also send them to the latest aisle. So that's my only politics for tonight, guys.
You have our vote, Mr.
Okay, that's good. Another old man, another white old man.
You'll be the youngest candidate.
Oh, that's right. 76. I would be the youngest candidate. That's true. But
so you're more qualified than the other two.
Yeah, but that's that's still ancient. I mean, that's ancient. So I told you I wouldn't talk about politics, but I said I'd try to make a little dig about it.
Joe, you got all the facts straight.
Well, Kevin, you did a great job. You answered the first question.
Oh,
right,
God.
Kevin.
Okay. That was
the second question, right, Kevin?
Right. The optics. Okay. I knew I was gonna suck myself into this, or you guys were gonna get it. Okay. The optics of politics is about so much of this. I mean, that debate, the optics. I mean, it destroyed, I guess, for all intents and purposes, the credibility of President Biden at this point. But what was worse was to see, which got around on X and different things, was to see Jill Biden talking to him later at a rally afterwards, and just this. You answered the first question and the second. I mean, to me, it was more cringeworthy. I understand what she was doing. He's his biggest cheerleader. She's probably the one person responsible, whether he continues in this race,
absolutely,
or not. And how she is the matriarch of the family, but just to be doing that afterwards, and then to let the advisors, to let them actually have that taped. It was the problem. It was more cringeworthy than the debate.
The problem with all this is when you watch something like that take place,
it's awful.
It was horrendous. It was like a really bad car accident. But Jill Biden knows her husband better than anybody, better than his staff, better than his assistant. Yet, instead of her pulling the rails back and saying, "Listen, Joe, maybe this was the last hoorah," she's adding wood to the fire.
But then again,
but it's not even a
did
fire.
Did you see he was at the event?
It's a dumpster fire.
But then again, in case any of your viewers and listeners may misunderstand or read into it, I'm sure on the other spectrum that, there was a conversation from Melania calling from her estate in France to Donald, she doesn't even show up anymore. I'm sure there was some kind of a conversation. Too bad you couldn't see it, that she was applauding him on for how he just answered every question. So
my favorite
expansively. So, I mean, let's not forget the mysterious and absent Melania in all of this. I mean, where is she these days?
I don't blame her for not. I don't even. If Trump didn't show up, I wouldn't even blame him. I mean, the fact. What are you debating? A dementia patient who should be at an assisted living memory care unit. See, I think we're being naive thinking that Jill Biden has any pull and she's the one determining, and she's the matriarch. You really don't think they have enough crap on Biden to go, listen, Jill, listen, we got all these things about your son, about your daughter, about every other family member. You're pulling out unless you want all of this to go public. They can pull him out any moment they want. They're using him. They used him for the last 4 years, and they'll use him as long as they need to, and until they no longer need to, and then they'll completely dismantle him. But even when what was that event with Kamala Harris when she calls out Joe Biden, he comes up on stage and he's like, ho, ho, ho. He thinks it's freaking Christmas.
4th of July. He said
4th of July,
she,
right?
she says the amazing, the magnificent. She gives all these adjectives and says, "Your president, Joe Biden," and you, oh, happy Independence Day. It's like you literally just took a meme that was a T-shirt and you made it into a reality, Joe.
Do you think? Okay, I'm gonna get drawn into this, but
Sorry,
okay.
sorry, Mr. Welsh.
No. But do you think?
Go ahead.
This is your show, and here it sounds like I'm doing this, but you guys are great with this exchange. Do you think that child care is an important issue in this country?
Child care?
Yes, child care.
Absolutely, 100%.
100%. Okay, and there are young families that cannot afford it. It's overwhelmingly expensive. There's
I think majority of I employ people and I see if they were to pay for childcare, pretty much 80% of their, if not almost 100% of their paycheck would go to childcare.
So the reason I asked, because to be fair, was when that was asked to former President Donald Trump, he never answered it. He continued on his tirade, calling Joe Biden a criminal and going on that he's the worst thing in the world and the victim and all of that.
Mhm.
And you can go look at it. You can go look at the debate and the tape. He never answered the former president of the United States when he was asked, what would you do about childcare? And in the context of the question that I forget, it was either Jake Tapper or Dana Bash asked him. He never answered the question. It's always the redirect. And I was thinking of the people out there and who are impacted. And I have a family member that is impacted with childcare and has to choose about finances and how to do that. And I'm just pointing it out to be fair. The former president of the United States never answered the question.
Look, I got to go back and listen to it. But when you talk about childcare, that piggybacks all the way back to the cost of living. Look what the cost of living has become in the past 4 years. And one question we always ask a lot of the people who decide to vote for Joe Biden is, did you live better 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, as far as cost of living, or are you living better today? If they say they're living better today, they're straight up lying through their teeth, because the cost of gas, the cost of groceries, the cost of living has, if not doubled, tripled. You just look at your receipt when you go to Costco or you go to your grocery store, and it'll tell you enough. I mean, you'll walk out of Costco, spend $300-400, but you look at your basket, it's practically empty. There isn't much there, unless you put some toilet paper to fill up the cart. But you can't say the fact that he didn't answer childcare. Oh, he dodged the question. No, that ties into what's happened to the cost of living today. And, it goes back to the middle class. The middle class has completely been demolished in the past 4 years. There is no middle class anymore.
I agree with that, but I respectfully disagree with you. I understand what you're saying about the cost of living. There are facts to support that, but I'm talking about a debate. I'm talking about issues, and I'm talking about how the people advise Trump. The Democrats get hung up. They're policy wonks. So Biden is going to be there and talk about the policy and answer these questions. They should have just told him, just call Trump a convicted felon. Go talk about how you slept with a porn star. Go talk about how you were going to.
He did that.
Well, he did the one. Go talk about how Mexico was going to build a wall and pay for it, and there isn't. But what I'm just saying is, when he was asked a question that is very dear to millions of Americans, and you showed up with those points, he just went on the usual thing, attacking Joe Biden, talking to him as the worst president, a criminal, people that are out to get him, and all those things. And I'm just saying, he had a chance to answer that question. He did not.
That's the one question he didn't answer?
No, he didn't answer a lot of questions, but I just don't think, if I were him, I don't think he took the whole debate seriously. I mean,
no,
especially after the fact when he turned around and said, Joe made a comment, answered the question, and he's like, I don't think he knows what he's saying. I don't understand what he's talking about. I don't even think he knows what he's talking about.
Oh, it's cringeworthy, of course.
No, my point is, I just don't think Trump had a choice. If he didn't show up, they would have said, see, he doesn't have the balls to debate Joe Biden. He showed up. It was an embarrassing debate because how do you take that debate seriously? You've got a guy who has no idea where he's at, who he's talking to.
Right, Welsh, you fed into MSNBC News.
No, like seriously, would you take that debate? If it was you, would you take the debate against the Joe Biden seriously? Would you actually go there and answer questions or be like, okay, what the hell am I doing here? Like, can you put a worthy opponent where we can actually have a debate instead of the guy was saying, I beat him last time and I'm going to beat him in this upcoming 2020 elections. He has no idea what year he's in.
Well, I mean, it's you're kind of giving me a rhetorical question. It's also hypothetical, and in a fantasy, I'm pretending to be. I would be thinking, like, if you want to go watch some classic debates, go look at the 1960 debate between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, which was an actual debate about issues, and of course the country was different than in everything else, and it would be something you'd have to see on YouTube. And
that was the first televised debate,
right?
As well.
And it would look and the optics of that debate permanently lasted a long time. It would show the impact and the power of media. You have the young John F. Kennedy. He was Catholic. A lot of that time in the country, people did not want a Catholic to be president. They thought a Catholic was going to go talk to the Pope and not abide by the Constitution. And Richard Nixon had was not fully shaven. Kennedy looked articulate and young. And people who said, listen to it on the radio, this is 1960, thought that Nixon kicked his butt. People who watched it on TV,
they said Kennedy won.
Kennedy won, and that image projected for the rest of the point. So we're talking about optics, but some people think I've chosen a side here.
No, Mr. Welsh.
Yet 100%.
Mr. Welsh, do you think that the existing Democratic Party, clearly it's not the same Democratic Party as what you recognize, like JFK and so on?
Absolutely not. And I'm an independent voter now. And I did that because I was registered before as a Democrat, and I changed after 9/11. And the Democratic Party left me. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. My career was based a lot about responsibility and accountability and productivity. And I just saw a lot of those things of what we had lost and what we still could lose after 9/11 and still could lose today. And there's a lot of things of their policies that I do not like. I do not approve. And so to myself, it was, I didn't leave it. They left me, and I'm an independent voter now.
There you go.
And so I can go into some detail, but that's a fact.
Well, the fact that you mentioned that, I think that put a lot of people at ease. They could sleep. Yeah. They could sleep better at night.
Thanks to Lord.
Yes, we know our Welsh.
Yeah.
No. There are issues about both parties that I have.
Oh no, absolutely.
I have terrible trouble with.
No,
I mean, I want to see a strong national defense. I want to see, why is it that the United States of America, with all our cyber capabilities and military capabilities and economic power, why is it that we cannot control a border?
We don't want to.
The Democratic Party left me. Now, the border situation, there's a lot of both parties had trouble with this. And don't forget, it was Reagan, who is the god of conservative Republicans, was the one that came up with the idea of amnesty when he was president.
Well, yeah, Reagan.
But
Reagan allowed legal immigration to take place, where
that's how we're here.
Yes, but it was legal immigration.
Right.
It was people that were not only
the 134 way.
Yeah,
that's what it was called.
But people were entering the country legally. They were entering through the port of entry. They were entering into the country and being granted, citizenship. These past 4 years,
this guy's a Kennedy Democrat.
Yeah, these past 4 years, it's been the complete opposite. It's been, hey, listen, there's a port of entry here, but don't worry about those port of entries. There's a tunnel here, there's a gap here, and there's a fence here that you can climb over.
Can I?
Go ahead.
I hear Ani B, or somebody up there, I don't want to embarrass anybody. It says, it's this guy, Welsh, he's a Kennedy Democrat. Well, not Robert F. Kennedy. Junior. But yes, I was a 10-year-old kid. And if you were an Irish American and John F. Kennedy was running for president, he was the first Irish Catholic president, first Irish Catholic person to run for the presidency.
Yes.
And it was a big issue about Catholics at that time in 1960, in mostly a Protestant.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a picture from National Geographic of Kennedy going into the Los Angeles airport and all these red, white, and blue hats and everything else. And then you see these 4 Irish hats. And my mother, God rest her, we were all excited. It'd be like an Armenian, running for president. You're all excited. I'm a little kid, 10 years old. The world was different. We go down to the Biltmore Hotel. We go down to Los Angeles, the old sports arena where the Democratic convention was. My brothers and sisters were older. And we walk into this room at the Ambassador Hotel. Mm-hmm. And there at the top table was Frank Sinatra, LBJ, John F. Kennedy, and walking through these stars, and there Elizabeth Taylor, and we're all in these like leprechauns, Irish jig outfits. Nobody stopped us. The world was different, no security. And my mother yes, I was a Kennedy Democrat for sure. I mean, by God, JFK, my world died when he was assassinated. We go right up to the table. I'll never forget it. LBJ sitting there, who eventually he was running against him. He's smoking the cigarette like this, like a Bolshevik, smoking a cigarette. Frank Sinatra's right there. We walk through. Nobody stops us.
So you saw Lyndon Johnson.
This is JFK. He was running for the Democratic nomination. There was Lyndon Johnson. There was a guy by the name of Stuart Symington. There was Hubert Humphrey. There were all these people that, were coming to be for the convention. And we go walking in, and my mother told us to take this old Irish drinking song, called Harrigan. Harrigan, spells Harrigan. So we go, Kennedy. Why don't you vote for Kennedy? And so Kennedy's face, looking at this, the guy is trying to downplay being a fucking Irish Catholic. And here are these 6 leprechauns walking in this room. Top of the mountain to you, darling, Kennedy. And John F. Kennedy is like, Jesus Christ, you could just see. Don't put this Irish Catholic shit in front of my face, right? And he is just this look. But Frank Sinatra goes, and Kennedy and Sinatra were buddies. But then Kennedy dropped him because of mafia associations and everything. You know this stuff. But Frank Sinatra, this is me as a 10-year-old. Frank Sinatra goes, Jack, look at the little guy. Okay, and so we put this piece of paper in, and he signs it. It looks like something you'd sign from a prescription or something. This is John F. Kennedy's thing. And so we go off, and everywhere at that convention, my brothers and sisters were older. They could go to these parties, but I was this little kid in this Irish jig outfit. I could walk into these rooms with these people were and all these things. It was like the greatest experience of my youth, but I'll never forget that look on Kennedy's face. And I could just see him in my mind, like going off, when they were going later and going to his advisors. Who the fuck brought these goddamn mackerel? Who the hell is, who's got these because if you ever listen to tapes, Kennedy had a blue tongue.
Yeah.
If you ever listen to these audio tapes and this stuff, he
had a sailor's mouth.
Oh no, it's hilarious. He called up this general because he posted this thing that Jackie in the White House bought this furniture. And of course, Kennedy's in a budget battle. And you see him pick up the phone. Yes, Mr. President. What the fuck is this goddamn thing? And you remember JFK, eloquent, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what that eloquence of his stuff. And you hear him going, what the fuck is this goddamn thing? Do you know what the hell you're doing? You get that goddamn thing retracted right now. Your ass is going to be put in the barrel. It's just hilarious when you listen to it. But that look on his face, and here we are coming up, and he's ready to make his speech and stuff. And there's the other candidates. And here are these Irish Catholic people just reminding everybody that he's an Irish Catholic, and just that look on his face is just like, oh, Jesus Christ, who's got these stupid assholes from Boston to come here? It was the greatest thing of my life. So yes, I was a definite Kennedy Democrat. That was the most marvelous experience of my youth. I was
How old were you again?
10 years old. I was
Oh,
devastated.
my
I
God.
was
Remember it,
I
huh?
was devastated on November 22nd, 1960. It was like the end of the world. I was a freshman and sophomore in high school. I was devastated. It was just like a personal connection. And it didn't have a camera. Even a camera at that time didn't have a camera with it to take a picture of it. But years later, a National Geographic, the magazine,
Yeah, of course.
they did a story about the
Don't tell me you were on you were in the picture.
No, in the picture was Kennedy being mobbed by a scene at Los Angeles airport, people all around him, which you would never see today with a candidate. The world has changed. You wouldn't get within 200-300 yards
Secret
today.
Service would be on your ass.
No, as well it should be. But we just walked into these places because we were the Kennedy. My mother was this great Irish bullshit artist. We were the Kennedy entertainment. Of course, you're in these Irish. You just walk through.
You were the Welsh Five.
No, it was it. The Irish mackerel. There we were, the Welsh potatoes. And no, it was.
By the way, the Irish are known for eating potatoes.
It was a different era, and it was just yeah. So I mean, it had a tremendous impact on my life, and I changed. I was very liberal up until 9/11. That just
And you
changed me.
stopped singing those Irish songs after 9/11.
Oh, I still sing them, but I'll never. But I meant was we didn't have whatever cheap little camera, a little brownie automatic camera, the flash bulb that you'd put in and the thing would explode in your hand. There was not a video camera thing that you would have. That technology wasn't there. There's nothing to prove it. But in that picture in National Geographic, you see the red, white, and blue hats of the Kennedy campaign workers and Kennedy in the middle, blue. And there you see these four hats, and my little hand and my half of my fat little face is like trying to get above the crowd, and my sister trying to help me because we was like a mosh pit, just mobbed. And I just looked at this thing and went, I mean, if I showed it to you, you'd see it. I mean, there's 5 green hats in this sea of other hats. I mean, that's us. Yeah, I get fired up. So yes, I was definitely a Kennedy Democrat, man.
That was a hell of a
What
story.
This has to be a clip.
100%.
Joe, did you earmark that?
Okay.
Yes.
I don't think you guys are ever gonna, we're digressing. Have me back.
Oh,
This
man,
is
are you kidding me
No,
right now?
these are the stories you want to hear. Where it's
well, some, but it's
No, we have tons of viewers right now live, both on Instagram and through YouTube and Facebook. There's a bunch of questions too. We're taking questions, by the way, guys. I know you guys think that we can't see the text, but we're in a few different spots. So yeah, we can read what you're saying. So
yeah, because you guys are everywhere on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. So we're jumping from platform to platform to see certain questions, but it just keeps piling on, and I'm as blind as a bat. Mr. Welsh can read the shit on the TV, but I can't see.
the Von Trapp Irish family.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
There's another one by Ani B.
Yeah, she's on fire tonight.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me see if it'll show the entire comment.
What is the question?
How does Welsh? Hold on.
Oop.
How does Welsh feel?
Oh, Mr. Welsh.
Sorry about that.
One of his former students currently running for the United States House congressional seat representing District 30, which includes Glendale and surrounding cities.
Well, there's a trap question. I feel
You don't know.
I feel that's great, but I don't know who it is.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, obviously there's a piece to this.
They're talking about Alex.
And if it's one of the, who is it? It's obviously
Alex Dr. Alex Belekian.
Oh, okay.
running against,
Wow.
well, not against for Adam Schiff's seat.
Wow.
Because Adam Schiff is leaving to become.
And is Belekian is he a Republican? Or is
He is a Republican. Yes, he's a Republican. He's also an ER doctor. What else?
He's very bright.
He's been on our show before, and
No,
his viewpoints are a little bit different compared to the Democratic Party. We've had him on the show plenty of times. He's a logical,
very logical
candidate. He's for the people, and he's against a lot of the, I would say, corruption that's been taking place in not only District 30, but in the state of California with these politicians and how they've been lining up their pockets.
Well, on two levels, a former Hoover student. I mean, of course, I'm going to be excited about that. And did you say that's Janet's?
It's Janet's
Janet's
brother.
No,
yeah.
that's and I knew Janet very well when she was at Hoover. That's exciting. But boy, that's going up against in that seat.
He's a Duke-Midgeon Republican.
There you go.
Okay.
Class of 95.
Okay, cool.
So
I think you could agree with that.
I wish him well.
Eric is asking, do you have a favorite year? He says, I know it's hard to choose.
well, I
but
mentioned that to him, and he's
When did you mention it?
in the practically what was it like the first.
I think
You did?
I think I'm stuck romantically between my first year at Hoover, being there as an administrator and a dean, being hired by Don Dunk in 1982, and I'm also at the bookend, the Alpha and the Omega,
Oh, right. You did answer that question.
leaving in 2010, and just that was my last year, and I'm leaving Hoover, and that was it. The last time driving out of the parking lot, that type of thing.
Is there anything else?
There's literally I know we're on hour 3, but
Are we really?
yeah,
Wow.
but we have like 102 right now live, and we have another 50 or 60 on anyway. I'm looking at a few phones here. Yeah,
Mr. Welsh, is there anything that you brought with your notes that you want to kind of recollect on?
I think we covered a lot of things and some fun stories.
But again, I want to leave it up to the audience. I think that we should continue, but it's up to you guys.
Mr. Welsh?
I'm good.
You
I
have a
mean, I
long
want to
drive.
demonstrate that a 76-year-old can stay up this late and I won't have a.
You're like campaigning, basically.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
it. That's it. I mean, I'm enjoying this.
You did it, Kevin. You answered all the questions.
You stayed up past 11,
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah. Well, if my wife is awake when I get home to be cheerleading for me, maybe when the garage door opens,
Imagine that.
you did a great job. You answered every question with those really mean Armenian people badgering you. You did so well with those people. You did so
Those
well
people.
with those people.
We're getting a bunch of comments about yes, we're enjoying it. Keep going. So I think maximum we could do on Instagram is about another hour, but
You know,
Is that when I get paid or what?
I'm on overtime. I don't know. You
Oh,
guys,
geez.
union's paying me, so we're okay.
See, Flash Red Rock is saying, is that when he retired 2000? Well, he technically retired from being an administrator at Hoover High School, but Mr. Welsh is a consultant now. He's a private contractor, and he's consulting with other administrators, helping them. Basically, he's helping guide them into becoming, who he was, which is a phenomenal principal. Somebody who we mentioned, like your personality has resonated with everybody, and the comments and the viewership,
As long as we're not into politics, stick with Hoover. Half these people.
Yeah, but
Can I have security when I walk? Is that, by the way, is that parking lot place that you told me that's going to be open when I leave? Right?
well, yeah,
It's
of course
ours.
it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
of
it's
course.
ours. It's our parking
But,
lot.
the
but
moment
you
you started discussing politics, viewership went up. Just so you know.
Oh, I know. And the hate now is coming out against me. Is on that consulting piece, just to qualify that a little bit. It's basically when I'm coaching, I'm like a leadership coach. I'm coaching them on leadership issues that are relevant to the context of the site in the district. And I'm not a manager. I don't go into. I'm not a boss anymore.
Did I say
Yeah.
manager?
No. I said I was expanding on it,
I see,
qualifying,
I see.
and I basically, in the process, help getting them to reflect about their practice, which they're so busy and so impactful. When do they get a chance to reflect on their day, their week, the issues that they're dealing with? And that's basically what when I'm dealing with them in dynamics is on helping them reflect on their practice and how they would view issues and things of that nature.
You're basically like a Tony Robbins of principals or
Yeah.
administrators.
Yeah, without the teeth.
And you don't make them walk on fire.
That's right. That's right.
Mr. Welsh, do you remember the system SASE? It's a program that you guys were using to keep track of everything.
You mean
Sassy?
It was sassy. It was like a doll.
Yeah, that's it was today they called it many different system. There's Aries today, and yes, the Stasi was the student information system. Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. It was anyway. Long history. There was a while back when. Well, we're in cybersecurity now because of back then.
well, there were like I did write down hacking. There were 2 major hacking incidents that occurred.
One was with the school board, right? Or
Well, no,
is-
this was at Hoover High School, and the consequences were very serious. So I'm not going to get into names or anything else, but there was a funny part of it. There were students that got underneath the auditorium where the drama kids would be in there, what they used to call Siberia, and where all the drama students would hang out in the auditorium, and they went underneath the auditorium, and they hacked into the system. And they compromised my password, and they guessed it 5 letters. They guessed it on the 3rd try.
Holy shit.
Irish.
Everybody.
And
knew your
they
password, Mr.
they
Ross.
hacked into the system to change grades.
I
And it was
remember that.
and it was
I
a
remember hearing
very
about that.
serious, and of course I never lived it down by having this ridiculous, of course at that time, passwords, people using passwords, of course, there's much sophistication about that today, is about all that today. That was it then, and that was a very serious incident. And then there was another one where a student with a, what do you call that thing on the computer with a keystroke, they
Yeah, keystroke. Keylogger.
yeah, and he had all these papers in his backpack. He got busted for smoking by one of the assistant principals, and he had all of these papers that were printed out with gibberish, but then it would have a name like Armine, and then it would have this other name or something like this, and it registered to him that this, that's so and so's teachers. This is weird. Why are these? And it had this name and that name, and that turned out to be the teacher's password. And then what they did was to sell and change everybody's, a whole bunch of people's grades.
So they would go in there prior to the grades being submitted to.
And then they had, it was about 25, 30 kids, and they changed their grades from, this from a D to a B and to an A and stuff like that. And they'd sell them. The guy was selling them off to other people. And it was only found because that kid's backpack was found, and had all of these gibberish of pages that they would print out. And then they found out that was the teacher's password to get in there to do that.
So the grade would be submitted into the actual system itself.
Mhm.
And if the teacher never went back and looked to see if Kevin was actually getting a C, it would have been changed to an A or a B.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And
What year was that? Because I remember that story. I don't know if I was in school or
I want to say maybe 2005, 6, something
that
like that.
late?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think. I'm gonna
It's during the tech days, so it has to be in the 2000s.
Well,
I'm gonna display age here. I'm not quite sure, but it didn't have a very satisfactory ending. The kids were disciplined, brought in and suspended, and they were part of the alternatives to suspensions too, was to be, depending upon the levels of what they did, was to attend ethics courses.
Which they should.
But I'm saying it was like most of the reaction with the kids attending these courses is just, to a lot of the kids that were involved in that, it didn't have the same seriousness as we viewed it in others. It was
so for them, it was just like, whatever.
to many of them, to several, very contrite, very remorseful, understanding it, got caught up in it, afraid and everything else. But to a lot, it was not a very satisfactory. We really thought that maybe it's some ethics about and understanding it, but it was
They looked at it as a slap
yeah,
on the wrist.
it didn't have a fun ending for us for either. But there was a couple of big things with that. When you mentioned the sassy system, that's what made me think of it.
Yeah, I was familiar with it because anyway, long story. But I wasn't changing grades and stuff. Just so you know, I used to work as
You
TA.
were,
and
you were
whatnot.
lowering the grades.
Right, right. I was lowering it. No, I have another thing here. It says talk about the apparently bomb shelter under the auditorium, the secret room rumor. Right here.
There's a bomb shelter under the auditorium.
No, but you know, of all the different groupings in kids, you have the stage crew and drama kids would they'd probably be the best security there was for the auditorium besides any locked door, because that was their place, that was their home, and they were like phantoms of the opera, exploring all these places, and they found these rooms and places and underneath, and actually found some wonderfully valuable things of Hoover students who served in World War II, and these plaques and things like this that were just, you know, like in the ruins of Pompeii underneath the auditorium. And they would, you know, have parties down there in beds and set up lighting and doing all this stuff. I mean, I don't know anything about a bomb shelter, but they just discovered in this cavernous auditorium these really cool places and stuff
Underneath the
underneath and up above too. And the funny part of it was that they, you know, they were in there and they shouldn't have been there in off hours, but it was, I mean, they safeguarded the auditorium more than any security or digital device or cameras could, because that was their world for a lot of those kids that they crawled around there and lived in. And they found some really cool stuff in there too. I mean, wonderful stuff. That
well,
was
the fact that you just mentioned World War items. I mean, that's a big deal.
No, and I'm not sure what has happened to them now. We took them out and got some restored and stuff. And
well, hopefully they've been preserved and sent to some sort of museum where they can
I don't
continue to
know,
be.
but you could see that these were very special in the times of the 1940s. There was some really incredible stuff.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
but that's,
Sam is saying
but I don't know.
I
I don't know about it as a bomb shelter. I mean, I suppose it would be. You get into that dungeon down there, and they called it Siberia. I mean, something would happen. You'd be fairly well protected, but I never knew of it as a bomb shelter.
There you go. What else we got, Joe?
I don't know. It's are you guys tired, or are you guys
Not saying
going?
tired. It's about content. Do we have anything else to talk about?
We have a lot of things to talk about, but I mean, it's
Relevant-
I want to go back
relevant
to
things to-
relevant things. Oh, what do you? I have a question. What do you think of the big change currently in what the curriculum is in today's in today's school versus like the education versus what we were going through? For example, I know times have changed, but like for example, the material that they're teaching elementary school kids now versus when they were teaching us when we were, you know, much older in regards to sexual education and whatnot.
I can't speak to elementary education. I can speak to the changes in teaching and teaching strategies when you were in school, and the type of maybe stereotypical teaching that went on, as opposed to teaching and teaching strategies today in high school and high school curriculum, where it's the idea is to not be the sage on the stage and have the teacher talking for 80% of the class. It's flipping that to where students are actively engaged in the class in different modalities and chunks of learning, and the lessons are engaging. And in fact, when we talked about discipline, probably one of the best discipline policies there is are strong and good lesson plans with teachers with strong classroom management skills, and who are delivering, you know, good, engaging lessons that kids are going to be involved in. But I'm, you know, laughing about politics, or I didn't answer the question. I think what you're talking about is what, you know, sex education and what's being exposed to kids. And
Right.
I don't know of what some specifics are in terms of the elementary school, but I am aware of the issue that's out there and what is there and given to kids. And I do have a lot of concerns as a grandparent and how much of that is out there, and
How it's being presented.
Mhm. And what should be the role of the parent and what should be the role of the school. And I do have some concerns in some of that area, but I can't speak to specifics of I can talk more about high school, but even that, it's different. It's, I think parents should be informed. Parents should have the rights to how that is being done today.
I
So
respect.
you don't think elementary teachers should be the ones having that discussion? Parents should.
Yes.
Look, I said it earlier in the show, and I'm going to say it again. Parents need to be more involved with what's going on in the classroom. When a parent is involved and they speak to the teacher, there's more transparency, communication is better, and you have a better learning environment for the child. You're doing a favor for your kid, you're doing a favor for yourself, and you're doing a favor for the teacher. It's a win-win-win situation for everybody, in my opinion.
Yeah.
No,
In my opinion.
No, I parents have a right to be informed about these identity and gender issues and sex education issues, and must be a part and parcel of and a role in that. But I think too, and I'm not trying to split hairs here. There's young kids in elementary school that have grown up with these screens in front of them and have seen everything that we are talking about these issues, and are being impacted by these things. And you have to also look at this from the lens of a teacher or a school staff person, and you'd find it astounding to think that a 9-year-old kid would be coming in to being trying to talk to a teacher, or asking questions about identity and sexual identity and things of that nature, and they do occur, and you're astounded. A lot of people are astounded by that, but that just shows how we have changed and evolved one way or the other as a society, and where these issues are out there.
But there's, our concerns about when events like that take place is how you approach that child and who should be informed. And as you said, the first person that should be informed is the parent. The parent needs to be involved. Secrecy from the parent is the worst thing you can do, as whether you're an administrator, you're a teacher, you're a principal, doesn't matter what it is. When a parent is involved, a teacher is involved, a principal is involved, and the student is involved, and all of them are in communication with each other, everything will go smoother. It's all about communication.
I agree. That is the ideal. That is the best school community unit that there could be. I agree.
And it goes towards everything, whether it's education, sex education, all this gender bullshit that's going on. Everything. Communication is key, which is what we're lacking in, unfortunately, in a lot of these school districts. Sorry, Mr. Welsh.
I'm just reading these things and I'm laughing.
But yeah. Mr. Welsh, is there anything else that we've missed before we call it a night? Because we're going to have you back on again soon.
Yeah, you guys are going to trap me. No, I think we covered a lot of things. And the only thing that I would just want to add, besides maybe how we digressed, is and to anybody who's listened and we had experiences together, is that I am very grateful to thousands of parents and students, staff and people over the years for their impact upon me in a career in the Glendale School District, and willing to work with me with a team and doing those things and trying to provide that education environment and all of these issues. And I know you guys really get into some of these issues, and we've skirted around tonight, and so have I on some of these. I would always put in a plug, because even as a consultant, there's a part of me that I still carry as a principal and manager, the kind of that management culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to throw any of these people that are out there under the bus. School administrator today, high school principal, is the toughest site job there is. Assistant principals, teaching is a gift, but the school staffs today, counselors, teachers, administrators, support staff, they are just thinking everything that we're going through in this country. They are just incredibly challenging jobs, and we need to support them. And I'm not looking for a gig. Yes, they must be accountable. They have to answer these questions to the community. And there are, like you talked about, these things that happened at the Glendale School Board in the last couple of years and things like that. They're happening all over the country. These are very dear issues to parents and people. I don't have an answer except that they need to be communicated and be transparent, and there can't be patronization. They have to have answers.
And you being an administrator for all those years, and you came onto the show and you talked about taking responsibility for actions that caused, controversy.
Yeah.
And you took responsibility for it. I think that's the biggest accomplishment, is to face, face the scrutiny and what else would you say it? How would you say it? Face the scrutiny and,
Well, I think
all the
accountability has been kind of the word of the year.
Well, yeah, the accountability is what we've been speaking about, throughout, many, many shows, but, taking responsibility for actions that cause certain reactions is another form of being a responsible administrator, being a responsible parent, being a responsible person. And I think that's one thing that we're lacking, is people taking responsibilities for certain actions.
And you're the ones who closed this, but somebody just texted me about School Street and how School Street has changed. You remember School Street?
School Street, I remember it being one way. That's what I remember.
Right,
about it.
but do you remember what occurred on School Street? What sometimes could happen out there?
As far as
kids going out there,
fights and all that stuff,
yeah,
of
going
course.
out there, drugs, smoking, and that.
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
well, it has evolved. I get all my Medicare drugs there now. It really has changed.
Oh,
Somebody was asking me about that one.
what's your copay? What's your copay on School Street?
It's $40 copay, right? There are copays to that. It's a $40 copay.
Talk about destroying the middle class.
And kids are ingenious, man. They're ingenious. I get some great stuff out there now.
Nice. I know where
Yeah,
to go.
School Street was boy, that is evolved. But thank you for having me. I
Of
really
course,
appreciate
Mr.
this.
Welsh. We thank you.
It's been fun.
It was a pleasure seeing you again after all these years. We hope you have a safe drive back, and we hope Mrs. Welsh is going to be cheering you on when the garage door opens. You
You
did it,
answered
Karen.
every question. Well, you did.
You seriously took me back.
Except half these people are saying he didn't answer that question. He did.
Piss off.
I think you took all of us back 20, 25, 30 years, depending on when we graduated.
The comments are definitely more positive than they are negative.
Yeah, definitely.
We have a lot of sarcastic.
Oh,
followers.
the fifth wise nut. Oh, yeah, baby. I'm making inroads here.
There you go.
There you go.
Hey, thank you both. All of you. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you, Mr. Welsh. Guys, today's episode will be up and running on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms tomorrow. Today is our last show of the season, literally the season. Yeah, I mean, that's summer season's here again, guys. So we will be back August 12th. We're taking a break, and we'll be back on August 12th. We'll have some great guests lined up for everybody. We'll have some great topics. Hopefully some funky shit will happen.
I think Levy's going to text me Monday. You guys have a show tonight. No, August 12th. Levy, August 12th.
Yeah,
Mark
we'll
your
be Monday, August 12th will be our returning show. Guys, have a great week. Have a great month. Go enjoy your time, and obviously still follow us on Instagram, because our memes are still going to be popping up. There's going to be content posted on Instagram as well. Our YouTube shorts will follow the Instagram shorts as well. But other than that, enjoy summer, and we'll be back August 12th. Love you all. Click the like button, click the subscribe button if you aren't already. What is it, Joe? Tell us, Joe.
The Arden Club. Thank you.
Of
you know
course.
you have a mic, Joe, right?
Yeah, you can,
That's right. I completely forgot. I went back.
yeah. He's just like,
He's not used to having a mic.
Looks like Billy Joel.
he looks like Billy Joel.
He does. Doesn't he look like Billy Joel?
Somehow.
Billy Joel.
A little buffer version.
He does.
Thank you to the boys from the Glen Arden as well. We appreciate you guys opening up the space and allowing us to host a podcast here. Again, have a great week. Have a great month. We'll see you guys all August 12th.